Testing, testing. Seeing if everything works. Sounds like it's working. Double check this, though. All right. Yeah, sorry about that. We had a OBS crash there in the last moment. Hopefully that works. How y'all doing? Welcome to the office hours. Let's get to the bar, shall we? Well, not the bar. Let's get to the office, shall we? We're not at the bar. That's for later. Silly OBS. No, not silly OBS. I gotta do this. Then I gotta do office hours. I'm a professional, I swear. Welcome to the office hours, ladies and gentlemen. This is a live stream where I stream and talk about Star Citizen. It's news, lore. We go some of the updates. It's a kind of an AMA hangout where people ask questions. I go over stuff. Generally speaking, we talk about Star Citizen most of the time. We go off on tangents every so often, but I say this all the time, but I honestly don't think this week is much of a stream this week. Mostly because there's just not a lot of news out of CIG. I do want to talk a little bit about some things, like trying to set expectations for 318. But they're not going to do like we're not going to do a what are they called? A capsule, because I haven't been able to sit down enough to have enough time to edit the capsule for the Squadron 42 update. So I'm going to monthly report. So I'm going to be doing that today and tomorrow and release it on Sunday or on Saturday. So those of you who missed that one. There's office hours, and if you want to know where to look, orifice hours. It is even a good office. It doesn't have a bar. Is it even a good office that doesn't have a bar? That's a good question. It's good. Yeah, so OBS literally just updated, and I did the stupid, and I said, oh yeah, sure, update it. And I'm like, wait, no. Go back. So it crashed right as I started. How y'all doing? Welcome there, Crystal King, Outlaw, Jimmy, Pappy, you unbelievably generous person. For those who are Patreons, I do obviously suggest that if you enjoy my lore stuff to check me out on Patreon. The Astro Historian on Patreon. I just uploaded a test from Uri on one of the... it's a visual test for a section of the next episode. He's kind of going through and starting to put things together and cleaning things up. And so it looks good. It looks good and it sounds great. Though the voice actor we hired... it's his rough cut. It's not his final cut. So it's just kind of the first draft. I'm waiting for him to send me a invoice so I could pay him. But yeah, how y'all doing? Hey, TMK. Oh, right, yeah. For those of you who don't know, I also do miniature painting. I eventually will get to my my JRDF models. I swear, Darj. I swear, JR and Cows, please don't hurt me. I'll get to them eventually before October. I gotta do it in next couple of weeks. I'll get that done. I've got a bunch of backlog. Anyone who's a model painter knows what I'm talking about. My pile of inspiration is not as big as it used to be, but it's still pretty big, and I want to try to get through it. But I did pick up this boy. Yeah, I'm gonna do it on stream. I'll do it on stream before CitizenCon. So I'll stream before CitizenCon, and then I'm gonna get off the stream for CitizenCon. Just because I don't want to. I never stream for CitizenCon because I always like to do it. We'll be hanging out in chat, by the way, if you're all interested. So if you want to hang out, or not in chat, in my Discord, if you want to hang out in Discord and watch CitizenCon with us, feel free to do so. So kind of hanging out there. Grab myself. I'm printing a tiny Big Daddy. But yeah, so this is the latest. It's hard to see because green screen, but it's a war boss in mega armor. He is so very big. I'll have to take a picture of it and upload it to Twitter because it's actually really well done, I think. It's one of my better orc models. It helps that the model is very well done. It's like GW actually gave a shit suddenly. So, it's pretty good. I just haven't figured out how I want to paint them. I say as I stare at 40 completely bare orcs. I just went with the easiest and coolest motif I could find, which is red, because red makes them faster. So anything that's red and complements red. So red, blue, obviously green for skin, so I don't want to do any greens. Yellows. Yellow is my bane, though. I fucking hate yellows. They have a lot of tiny details. Yeah, the orcs, especially 40k orcs, do. I don't know about the other kind of orcs for other things do, but I think they all do have a lot of tiny details. Thank you for gifting that well, thank you for subscribing for 17 months there, Mason. Thank you for that. But yeah, I'll do it. I'll have to pin cows and those kind of things. For those who don't know, you can buy these, which is pretty cool. If you're a mini painter, they're pretty especially for the things you get. Still waiting on my similar scaled cutlass. I would buy that in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. I know people want the 600i and the MSR, but yes, I'd love to see a 1 to 200 cutlass. There's a survey. I mean, I think I've already filled out that survey, but I'll. Hey, Wovos. Yeah, happy 500 million. I'm going to do a little bit of a discussion about it here towards the beginning. I might turn it into a capsule. I might run it as a capsule and see if it turns into a capsule. But like, there's already so many better, well done videos like Space Tomato and stuff like that. It was much more higher quality, about 500 million, that kind of thing. One to one, and it's space worthy. No, I don't think it's going to happen. You're never going to get a Corsair that scale. Because a Corsair is like 3 times that size. It would be the size of someone's desk. There's a reason why they don't do like 1 to 200 scales for the bigger ships. Just because it's impossible. 1 to 500 they can do. Even the Carrack is the size of like a small, like one of those boat models. It's 10 inches at 1 to 500. You don't need Star Citizen when you got a model in your hands. You can pew pew all by himself. Yes. I'm thinking about putting together a very basic way of doing kind of a tabletop game for it. I talked with a friend of mine is doing something, and I don't want to like cut in on them, but I also would like to have people play something nice and fun, something for free. At the very least, I want to take the game of what we know of Sadaball and turn it into a tabletop kind of game that you can play on like Tabletop Simulator or something, because that should be fun. I've been playing a lot of Blood Bowl with Cam recently, and I've been having fun. It's a weird and wild game, and I love that kind of stuff. Yes, it does. It's very complicated. It's called Star Wars Armada? Or is it Star Wars X-Wing? It's Star Wars X-Wing, I think. Because there's Armada, X-Wing, and Legion. But I did talk to JR at one point, and he was like, you could really make like a cool like tabletop skirmish game or like Warhammer style game out of Star Citizen with all its stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you could. My son does them for me on his 3D printer. Yeah, it's pretty cool to do some of those things. But not everyone has access to a 3D printer, and those are really high scale models that JR does. So. You're never going to get a Nomad at 1/400. It just costs too much money for them to make, and no one would buy it. Yes, and our bases miraculously fit all Star Wars X-Wings. I wonder what they base the 500 scale models off of. Hey, that's your how you doing? Yeah, it would be 1 to 200. It's about that size, same size. Anything above a freelancer or cutlass would be 1 to 500. Would be my guess. Connie, MSR, 600i, all of those would probably have to be 1 to 500 scale. You could maybe get away with a 1 to 500, a 1 to 200 scale MSR, but I think they even toyed with that idea. JR did, and it's too big. Thank you. Yeah, it's let's see, ID Tumbler Nova. Wait, I know you can't do that one. Okay. 1 to 500 fighter scale. Ooh, Scorpius. Mwah. Oh, Scorpius. Great Cutlass. And Hammerhead. No, yeah, Hammerhead. Oop. Sent it. I'll put it in the description for the video afterwards if y'all want to vote on the next JRDF mini that they're releasing. So, hey, you've got 24 months. 500 million party. Yeah, let me do that as a quick capsule, because I don't know if I'll actually turn it into a capsule or not. So let's do that real quickly, and then we'll move on to the inside Star Citizen and that kind of stuff to talk a little bit about that. So for those who don't know what capsules are, I'm going to address the camera because I'm doing it for like a YouTube video, and then afterwards we can talk and hang out and that kind of stuff. So all right. Hello and welcome to another Star Citizen Office Hours Capsule. That's right. This is a short section. I call it Capsule because it's a short section of my Office Hours live stream. You can see right here. Chat is live. Say hi, chat. You can join us live on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. On Thursdays, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub or youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive. Love to see you here. Come in here and talk and hang out live. So, I've already screwed up massively, so you definitely know it's live. But I want to talk about 500 million. That's right, $500 million has been raised for Star Citizen. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, if you just came in because you heard about this game, Star Citizen, and you heard it's a scam, you're right, run for the hills. I have been covering Star Citizen as a hobby for 7 years now. I've been here since the first iteration of Arena Commander as a content creator. I have been covering this so long, I have moved 3 different states. It has been almost a decade of covering this game. And while a lot of people will say, that's ridiculous, that's way too much time, let me kind of give you some context for where Star Citizen was and where it is now, and if 500 million, $500 million even makes sense. So let's start with, when did Star Citizen start? This is one of those things that often people get wrong. You'll hear a lot of misinformation say that Star Citizen started in 2011, based off of a statement that Chris made that said he started working on the project in 2011, but crowdfunding didn't start until the end of 2012. And I don't want to go into too much like excuses territory, but anyone who has done any sort of project that has to pitch it to investors will know that what you do early on is often proof of concept. You play around with things to show that to investors that it will work, that the thing you want to do is working, it can work, this is a scale model, this is a demo, whatever. And that's pretty much what Chris worked on with a handful of people that they showed off during their Kickstarter. And straight from Chris Roberts' mouth, for those who don't know who Chris Roberts is, he's the CEO and founder of Cloud Imperium Games, and he's an old school game developer from the 90s. If you remember, if you're old like me, you remember games like Wing Commander and Star Lancer. That was his baby. He went off, tried to make movies, failed, and then came back to make games again. And his original pitch, his original idea, and he's been very vocal about this, was he would raise some money for Kickstarter and through crowdfunding, and then use that as a proof to investors that there was interest in this game to be made. It's a project, it's a tactic that was used back then for kickstarting, and it is still used today by a lot of indie developers to try to get interest from outside investors. So the game was pitched, and they didn't have any idea how much money they were made. I think they made $4 million. It held the record for a long time of the highest kickstarted thing ever on the platform. But they continued to crowdfund. And after about almost like a year of crowdfunding, they realized that they could continue to crowdfund. They didn't need outside investors. So that was 2012. At the end of 2012, it's just a handful of people in a basement in Austin, Texas. Over the years, they have done one engine swap. They have done an entire changeover of the game. And they are now at 5 studios and almost 1,000 people. Building a studio and the game. So when you hear something, a flashy title like $500 million, $500 million, know that that's $500 million over the course of 10 years almost. 10 years as of this fall, as of October. Well, I guess October 9th. As of October 9th. And that's not a lot of money. That sounds like a lot of money to your average person. If someone was holding $500 million, $500 million, that's like, whoa, that's a lot of money. But to pay for 5 studios, 1,000 employees, and to do, obviously not 1,000 employees at once, but over time, ramping that up and paying for the employees alone, the health benefits alone would cost them a lot of money. The reality is that CIG and Star Citizen is not some scam. It's not some money-making scheme. Because if there's a money-making scheme, Chris would have left with the money years ago. We're sitting in a situation where Chris is making pennies in comparison. And if this goes up to YouTube after the fact, I'll put it up here. This is the financial records of EA show that they make $1 billion+ alone on just their mobile games. There are companies that make, like I think Rockstar makes an insane amount of money on just GTA, online, period. So there's a lot of money to be made in the video game industry. And while it sounds nuts that a game that's 10 years of development that has $500 million, $500 million, and still being produced, that's not a lot of money. And it's not a lot of money to do what they're doing. One game release can earn that much money. A decent sized AA game release can earn that much money. Most game releases that are successful, not even like super major superstar releases, solid releases like Control, if you remember that game, I think it made upwards of $100 million when it released. And it's still being sold today. I don't know what its lifetime earnings are, but I can guarantee you it's higher than $100 million. So that's a quarter of what CIG has made over 10 years in 1 year alone. The financials of business is insanity. And most gamers don't really look at the costs of things, like just one average game employee, someone who's making games, like a QA person, has to earn around $25,000 to $30,000 a year. I mean, if you don't even include medical benefits, just $25,000 to $30,000 a year, and you pay for what, 4 of them? You're over $100,000. And most game developers, people who are working as like coders or engineers or designers, make upwards of $60,000 to $100,000 a year. And most game development companies have to be competitive in their market, so they have to pay them good money. And if you want good employees, people with a lot of experience, a lot of know-how, you have to pay them higher wages. So CIG is doing some insane things with Star Citizen. No one has ever tried to do what Star Citizen is. It's a first-person universe. They're trying to build like 1/6 scale planets, trying to get as close as they can to realistic like physics. Obviously, some breaks and some changes to make things a little bit more fun. But you can land on all the planets. You can traverse all the planets. Everything has that kind of handcrafted feel to it. All online with hundreds or over 120 players at one point that they can do, with plans of thousands of players per server and possibly making it. And that sounds like a lot of very complicated and difficult things. You've probably heard stuff like this pitched many times before, but the difference is that CIG is investing the money to do it. They've taken that $500 million and tried to do it. The Mad Lads tried to do it, and they're getting close to it. They're already in 318, which is releasing soon, is some of the groundwork for being able to increase the size of players, the number of players per server, which could theoretically go up to hundreds of players just with 318. And beyond with 4.0, they have things like server meshing, which, again, not new technology, but new in the way they want to use it for Star Citizen. With thousands, they want to do at least three major hubs of servers: North America, Europe, and Australia. The populations of Star Citizen now is still probably 10 to 100,000 players in each of those regions. Probably lower in a place like Australia. And all on one server, effectively one server for that, which is absolute insanity. And most people say it's impossible, but CIG is trying to do it, and they're going to do their best to try to do it and make it as interesting as possible. And they've achieved a lot of that already. The game still can support, like I said, supports up to 120 players per server. They do drop the server lengths when they do these big events, but they do major events pretty frequently these days. You can buy all the ships you want in game with in-game money. They have a reputation system they've been developing that's still in the game. You can land on every planet. You can get out and walk around. You can purchase weapons and armor and ship upgrades, play with other players. You participate in larger battles with other players in your ships, operating the ships with you, moving around inside it. You can have FPS. You can go EVA and go FPS and go fight AI or players. There's a lot they've done. And if you are brand new and you have never even seen this before, check out when they go do free flight weeks. There almost always is a free flight. I think like once a month, usually towards the fall. Once a month, they do about a week of where you can just come in and try it for free. All you need is an account. And I urge you, if you're on the fence or you're just like, this sounds nuts, everything you just said sounds crazy, check it out yourself. Is there bugs? Yes. Does the game crash randomly all the time? Yes. But this is going to sound, again, weird. It used to be worse. It is much better now. It's probably not quite ready for your average gamer just to pick up and play. But if you're watching this and you're intrigued, you're not the average gamer. You're crazy like me. You go, maybe I should give this a shot. Maybe I've played alphas before. I've played buggy games before. Let's see. I've played Cyberpunk 2077. Let's see how this goes. And strangely enough, I have had a more smooth experience in Star Citizen than I have with Cyberpunk. Even recently. So take that as you will. But let me know, as always, let me know your thoughts below. Join us live Thursdays if you want to know more about Star Citizen, the news, lore. I've got an entire different channel called The Astro Historian, where I cover Star Citizen lore. I've also been covering the Starfield's lore, because Starfield's coming out soon, too. And I'll be covering some stuff with Starfield, because I like space and science fiction. I'm the AstroPub. And like I always say, hope to see you someday in the black. I have no idea if that's going to be turned into or not. I just wanted to do it, so. It's demoralizing that wipes ships makes me feel like I'm not doing anything. The way I've always done it, to treat it, especially when wipes come in, is I treat it as a way of trying to explore and do different things. I found Zero to Heroes very helpful. Playing with an account that just has a starter ship, if you know there's going to be a wipe, just have fun. Go for it. See what you can do. Tom Scott in the background. One take. I'm not going to do another take. It's a live stream event. I'm not going to change that. No. You didn't really miss it. It was just my ranting. But we can talk a little bit about it. Basically, Montoya did a great video, where he talked about how 500 million ain't shit. It's fucking peanuts. It's garbage. That's peasant money. Here, let me pull it up and show you. All right, so here's EA's financial report for Q4 financial year 2021, all right? This is a company that has about 4 times the number of employees as Star Citizen, if I remember correctly. It may be a little bit more, but... All right. So, it's a lot of financial stuff. I'm trying to find the stuff that's a little bit easier to... Find the stuff that's easier to grasp. Okay. Gross profit was 127 million or 1,000, so $1 billion in gross profit at the end of March 31st, 2021. $1 billion in gross profit in 1 year. This is for all of its subsidiaries. I'm sorry, that was 3 months. 12 months. So this is the full year ending at that $4 billion. $4,135 million in revenue. That was a profit. That's how much money they made after paying everything. They spent about $1 billion. Oh, hey, Runners. What's up, y'all? I'm just looking at it because, like, this is just EA. All right, let's look at here. Let me do this. Let's do something like what's a smaller company? I would say Bethesda. Bethesda's part of Microsoft now. Let's do Bethesda. Let's go 2019. 2018, right? That was before they got 2019 was the last one. This is their audited financial report. Let's take a look at this. All right. Double checking to make sure. There's just no way this is in. All right, here we go. On the right one. I think this is the wrong Bethesda. Yeah, it's the wrong Bethesda. There we go. Okay, this is a fiscal year 2017 was their last one. Okay. Can't find it. The things I'm seeing is they were worth about $1 billion in 2017. 1.7 billion. How you doing, Info Runners? One planets that simulate the size of the landmass of Canada. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to do too much of that. Supergiant Games. Okay, let's look at that. Supergiant Games financials. Okay, so Supergiant makes about, according to this, is about 10 million. They make $10 million, and when was this? 2022, yeah. So they've made they make about $10 million a year, which is about half of what Star Citizen makes. But they also only have about 100 employees. 10 to 100 employees. Yeah, CD Projekt Red. Let's look at CD Projekt Red. I don't know if they report their financials. Okay. Here we go. I'm pulling it up right now. Between January 1st and June 23rd, 2022. All right, these are euros. Let's find the right. I'm guessing this is in millions. Because again, I don't know if this is okay, condensed net profit loss. About $113 million in half a year. €113 million, I should say. Total comprehensive income, so 100 million euros a year, or half a year. So about, if obviously it's not even throughout the year, let's just say it is, because for simplicity's sake, it's like 200 million, probably more towards the holiday season than it is in this beginning of the year. So 200 million. This was published in 2022, June. Call of Duty hits 30 billion revenue milestone as Warzone continues to boom. On Warzone alone, I'm guessing. They made $3 billion in a year. In 2020, they made $3 billion. They made $500 million. They made what CIG has made thus far in 10 years in one summer. One summer. And I can guarantee you, no shitting on the people who work on those games. They work their fucking asses off. They often get overworked, underpaid. Unionize, please. But like, those people get fucking treated like dirt. They do their fucking damnedest and they do a good work. They do a good job. They work hard. And the fact that the game's even made is a miracle. But they're not doing the same kind of things that CIG is doing in terms of difficulty, in terms of like research and development and new concepts and new things, with probably the same number, if not probably less than people than that kind of stuff. So whenever someone says Star Citizen's made $500 million, still in alpha, no game in sight, I always laugh because it's like, that's peanuts. That's pittance. That's nothing compared to the grand scheme of gaming. It's big for an indie developer, but I mean, Star Citizen CIG is climbed out of the ranks of the indie development range years ago. They have 1,000 fucking people. And the fact that they're spending, they have 1,000 people, or they're about to have 1,000 people in their games company, and they've only made $500 million is the fucking story. How the fuck is that studio still open with only $500 million over the last 10 years? Obviously, they made a bunch of money early on when they didn't have a lot of employees, but their burn rate's got to be fucking high now. Which is one of the reasons when everyone say, oh, well, Squadron 42 should be dropped. Squadron 42 is what's going to make them money. They need Squadron 42 to release in the next couple of years because this burn through rate is not sustainable. They have to release a goddamn game. Because if they dropped the game like Squadron 42 with the proper marketing and the lead up and all that kind of stuff, they would make easy $100 million on Squadron 42's initial release. Probably more, considering the star power behind it, if they wouldn't fuck up the marketing, which, I don't know, they could. That's the money they need to continue to make Star Citizen. So people who say, well, I'm not interested in Squadron 42. You better fucking be. Because it's the only way that Star Citizen's getting made. Well, I don't like the fact that it's making another game. Then don't fucking back Star Citizen, because it needs Squadron 42 to exist. I hate that shit too, that idea too, but it's just the way it is. Yes, Gary Oldman's still in Squadron 42. Mark Hamill, John Rhys Davies, Gary Oldman, Henry Cavill, Mark Strong, I'm trying to name off all of them. There's so many big names in that whole thing. Andy Serkis. Yeah, Gillian Anderson. Yeah, I know a lot of people back for Squadron 42, so. And that's... I pay them more than they got old man Hurston say uwu. Listen, Ghost, it's gonna happen. I just gotta wait. It's gonna happen on the next Lore Citizen podcast, which is gonna be tomorrow. I think I already said John Rhys Davies, but yeah. And Billy does not hear a word I just said. Just wants to meme. It's all right, buddy. Meme close to the sun. Your wings aren't made of wax; they're made of memium. Meme, my friend, meme. Hey, thank you so much for being a member for 2 months there, Ghost. Better, I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna get him to do it. I mean, just freaking Henry Cavill alone. But like, Mark Hamill and, what's his name? The guy who played Sir Davos in Game of Thrones. Like, that actor fucking brings it. He just brings it. Like, it's insane. I went back and watched the how much for a Super Bowl ad. Fuck the Super Bowl ads. All right. Let me get on my podium for a moment and just say this: game companies are fucking stupid. Whoever's in charge of marketing for game companies, especially in the era of Super Bowl ads for games, needs to be fucking fired. Like, holy shit. It is not 1999 anymore. You have the goddamn internet. It's a lot cheaper, and you're going to see a lot more conversions if you use a fucking YouTube ad. An ad on Instagram is going to get you more clicks than the fucking Super Bowl, which is going to cost you far too much money. Put the fucking credit card away, okay, Gary? We know it worked when you were snorting coke off of strippers in Miami, you know, to wheel and deal and get yourself a 10% discount on a Super Bowl ad. It's not fucking 1999 anymore, okay? We live in the internet age. I'm so tired of it. I've seen it so often. Like, being in the Twitch circles, I used to go to a lot of like conventions and such. And I've been invited to a couple of parties. The amount of fucking tech bro financial people who are like, I've started all of these companies, and it's like, you failed 5 of them. I know this because I grew up in Silicon Valley area. I've fucking seen a dime a dozen of these dudes. They all think they're fucking geniuses. They come in with these ideas because they grew up with in upper middle class families and got a degree from some fucking Ivy League university, and show up thinking that they're fucking invincible and they have these great new ideas. Yet the like intern who's been paid to manage their social media has a better chance at marketing their product and for an activation than they will ever do, because they don't even fucking understand the products they're trying to produce. It fucking drives me nuts. Sorry, rant on this. Yeah, and the Super Bowl audience is not exactly ideal. Well, the idea is, the concept is solid, but it was solid in like the 90s and early 2000s. It's one of the most watched events in America. So you have a lot of eyes. So people will watch who don't even give a shit about sports. And so you put your ad up there to try to get the attention, to get the buzz, to be talking about the talk shows the next day, about being unique and different and off. But everyone fucking does it. And because the Super Bowl knows that, you know, the people who, whoever company is running the Super Bowl that year knows, they're going to charge outrageous amounts of money for you to run an ad, which probably won't even work. Yeah, serial entrepreneur, fail offspring with rich parents. And don't get me wrong, there are some very, very successful business folks who understand how business works, who have that kind of background. There's plenty of people out there that exist, but the vast majority of them have no goddamn clue what they're doing. They just think a nice suit and a quick voice is going to get them where they're going. And I'm just a fucking idiot. I'm just a fat guy whose parents were marketers, who worked a couple of years as a marketer, in marketing to help them out, picking up things here and there. Worked as a kind of a independent for my dad for a while when he was working for another company. I helped him out there. I've absorbed most of my knowledge not through education, but through practical experience. I don't have the fucking degrees, but I've seen it happen so many goddamn times. I can sniff these people out a mile away, and anyone who's worked in the industry can. It's so blatant. I'm a lovable, informative fat guy. Thank you. It just drives me nuts. Hey, guy, good evening. Hey, how you doing, Sandy? Yeah, I'm not a fat panda. I'm the fat panda. You've been doing coke with your friends and talking about business models, making an expert. Those people didn't even barely pass their business classes. And again, it's not. I don't want to shit on people like that because it's a stereotype. I've known plenty of, I have more than a few friends who went into business, started their own like family businesses, or they went to work for other companies out there. They're fine people. They are good at what they do. And there is something to be said about someone who can party like a motherfucker and still land a deal the next day. Those people are goddamn champions, and I have no idea how they function. But those people are the people you need, because those people actually work. Those people put the fucking pedal to the metal, and put their nose not to the glass or to the stripper's butt, but to like the grindstone. The people who know how to wheel and deal, but then when everything goes down, they make that deal before that person realizes what actually fucking happened, because they're just too hungover to get it. I'm just a fat guy. T-shirts will be printed. But here's the problem, though. It did get them where they are. It's stupid the system caught them. No, the system failed them. It's just that the system, they've got rich parents. They've got family members, and they've got friends who can back them up. Eventually, they fail entirely. Eventually, they end up working for their parents' dealership or going into real estate, something like that. Like, they always have a backup plan, because they have backup plans for backup plans, and they've got a good support network, which is not something I'm going to shit on anyone for having a good support network. It's just, it's frustrating, and I can get, and this is from like I understand this from like a developer point of view, of how many fucking people will come into your industry and say, this is what you need to do, and it's like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You saw that Call of Duty did well, and now everyone's do fucking shooters. Who gives a shit? No one's gonna buy another generic shooter with a modern flair slap to it. We have to make something different. Oh yeah, let's do something different, like this other. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Thank you, Devlog. This is actually made by. I keep forgetting. Whenever he pops up in the chat, I know it's actually made by a viewer who did it for his class, for like a 3D Max class. It was pretty cool, and that's actually concept art for Pyro. I mean, that's Pyro right there. Sorry, I'm gonna get off of this tangent. My point of the whole thing is that Star Citizen hasn't made a lot of money at all, and that Squadron 42 is needed to improve it. And if they do well with their marketing, if they're smart, if they know where to put the money, and they are able to utilize content creators well, and yes, this is going to piss you off, but content creators need early access to Squadron 42. Because they need to make videos, and they need to make a live stream. Maybe not early, so everyone gets it at the same time. But there needs to be people who can play the game a week ahead of time to make a video to release after the embargo date. If that pisses you off, that some people who haven't put the money in, who don't have the stuff, people who just happen to be famous, get a chance to play it before you do, fucking suck it up. Because those people will bring in hundreds, if not thousands of people. Look at Jack Frags. Jack Frags alone brought in so many people into the community, it's not even funny. People like Ollie, people like Level Cap. Ollie and Level Cap do fucking Star Citizen almost their full-time gig. They cover stuff so many. They are big names that have a lot of influence and flavor. So many of those people who end up becoming part of the community who help join us in this stupid endeavor. But there will be people who don't give a shit. They're doing it because they think it's cool and they got early access to it. But there's so many people who get so upset about that idea. Francisco, you have no idea. There are plenty of people who get mad about that sort of thing. It's like, let me put it this way. Remember, anytime content creators get a ship before even the people who purchase the ship in like PTU, Reddit, Spectrum, like community loses its fucking mind. I paid for this ship. I should have it. This person is just a fucking famous person online. They shouldn't. It's like they're fucking advertising it, you dumbass. Yeah, Markiplier. Like, he'd be a perfect person to play Squadron. Love Cup's real home. I've played Airsoft with him more than a dozen times. He's talked about it over lunch. He's a genuine guy. He kind of pisses me off when people hate on him. He's great. They won't do it because they want to give out spoilers and close first 30 minutes off with the NDA. I don't know if Asmongold would be a good one. Asmongold, I've heard, is a very... I'm sure he's a very nice person, but he is very contentious in how he talks about things. He is not civil in any way, shape, or form, and does the wrong thing of attacking developers for problems in a game and not management, because management, pays him. Why don't I give access to everyone who bought it on PTU, though, along with the creators? Why does it need to be everyone in the PTU? That's the problem. It's like, if they give it to creators early, why does it matter? PewDiePie? Yeah, I don't know. I can tell you, based off of my own experience, the people you want to bring in. You want to bring in Rubrix Raptor, who's probably not a name you've probably heard of, but he's played Star Citizen before. He actually used to use, as his outro, Squadron 42 music. And he's played Star Citizen multiple times for his community when he was smaller. He's mostly an Arma streamer. You'd want someone like Remy. Because those are the kind of people who are small, but they're in the Milsim community. So if you have a good reputation with them, then you can usually spin a good result out of it. Well, obviously Level Cap. Level Cap and Ollie, of course. But there's some other ones who you don't really know about. Because they don't give access to all creators. Who gives a shit? It's just going to happen. Now, do I think people like Remy and Rubik's Raptor and those folks should come over to like Star Citizen now? No, but like Squad 42, yeah. Spiffing Brit will break the game in 2 minutes. I don't know Remy. I watch Remy. I don't know him. Remy, if you for some fucking reason are watching this, fuck you. But also, I like your watch. You're funny. And congratulations on the house. Can Star Citizen ever have mainstream appeal? No. Star Citizen will never have mainstream appeal. I think it can have mainstream audience, but it will never be a Call of Duty. It'll never be a WoW. It'll never be, and it's not trying to be. There will always be some barrier to entry for most players to try to play the game. That doesn't mean it won't have mass appeal. I think it can have mass appeal, but it's never going to have mainstream appeal. Is Frankie still doing content? I haven't heard anything from Frankie on PC in forever. It's not the same Raptor. Raptor is not the same. Everyone gets a two. There's a Raptor and then there's a Rubrix Raptor. There are two different things. Ignis Corp is his group that he works with. That's probably what he's known better as. I think, yeah, Star Citizen is almost certain going to have VR and tracking implemented at some point. But saying that, it's like, that could happen when Cyborg Chris Roberts finally releases the game in 2945. Like, I don't fucking know. Yeah. Can it make the sort of money if it's not mainstream, though? Yes. It definitely can. You're just going to have to live with single-player games releases, which will take up some Star Citizen resources, but make a lot of money, especially like Squad 42 part 1, 2, and 3. Plus skins, microtransactions, those sorts of things. No, you need Obsidian Ant and Cameral to play the game. They have a huge audience. Just because you don't like them doesn't mean they won't go with the crowd. Obsidian Ant, when Elite Dangerous took an absolute dump and Odyssey sucked, Obsidian Ant covered Star Citizen almost exclusively for like 3 to 4 months. He was pissed. Star Citizen Battle Royale 1. Hey, what's up, Loken? Can we get a follow comment for Loken Plays, by the way? Loken has reached 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. You should go watch him on YouTube as well as on Twitch. Cameral's okay. Cameral's a Star Citizen streamer, I think, isn't he? He's really critical of CIG, but he's been a Star Citizen for a long time. Fucking finally, yeah. Star Citizen's too complex for most casual gamers to get a handle on. I like that that way. It limits the people who other than in-game beggars want to play the game, learn it, and get good at it. There's going to be here's the other thing that's going to be like important to realize. Star Citizen is going to have to get simpler and then more complex. Star Citizen right now is complicated because of bugs and incomplete game files. Once they've streamlined out the game process a little bit more and they've fixed a lot of the bugs, they're going to make the games easier to access by your average person. They're also hopefully going to make it a little bit more, the high end's a little bit more complex. Here's an example: startup sequences for ships. They're going to have startup sequences for ships. It's not going to be like toggle the batteries, jiggle the ossifier, transmute the transmutificator. It's not going to be like Star Trek, Treknobabble bullshit that you're going to have to do 17 different stages of. It'll be like 4. But there'll also be turn the ship on option. Just, fuck you, I'll just turn the ship on. But the difference will be that the people who know how to start the process, the 4 to 5 switches that you hit, will be able to start this ship up faster. They go, I can skip that and just hit this and then hit this at the right times, and I can boot up in like a minute. Whereas someone who just hits the on button will take about 2 minutes or whatever. This will take me 30 seconds without having to like hit the on button. I'll just tick, 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 tick this off, tick this on, through these sort of like sequences to like, you prime the engine, it gets up, you turn the primer off, you turn on the thrusters, you wait for the thrusters to warm up, then you hit the main engines, then you hit the power plant to turn on the engines, or to hit the, you turn on the shields, that sort of process where the sequence of events pretty easily. And you can easily be taken off and going before the other person even finishes their startup sequence, because it's going to go through a checklist of internal checklists for it to go boom, 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 boom. That's the kind of thing that's going to make the game more accessible, easier for people to play, but also more complex, add more complexity to allow for players who are higher level to be able to eke just a little bit better out of it. Like cockpit terminology? I don't give a shit about cockpit terminology. Because no one's cockpit terminology is correct unless you work for NASA. What about that flux capacitor? Yeah. CIG will sell to Microsoft and make billions. You know what? I've heard stuff like that before. No one would buy Star Citizen. No one would buy CIG. CIG is a giant pile of danger for any investors. Star Citizen's not a profitable venture. You're never going to make billions of dollars off of Star Citizen. No one is. Even CIG is not going to make billions of dollars off of it. CIG could probably make enough money to keep Star Citizen running and make single player game, but they're never going to be $1 billion corporation. Ever. Period. That's just not how they work. Because it's just not how the game's supposed to, it's not, the games that they make are not very profitable. They're not going to ever be profitable. And the monkey flips the switch. Yeah. There'll be a tutorial on Squadron 2. There's going to be a tutorial on Star Citizen, too. Drew Wagner's a good small streamer. He's been on the Captain's Table. Yes. He also wrote EV lore novels. He started playing Star Citizen last year during IAE, brief Free Fly, and then brought him game package to Cuddy Black. Yes. Yeah, I know. He loves the Cuddy Black. Because he is correct. But yeah, Drew's been on the Captain's Table before. We've talked. You and I, yeah. The UI needs to happen. Hello. Asian pasta. I've worked on and ran jet engines. Are really not complicated. Airflow, fuse, spark. Yeah, but there's a difference between jet engines and a rocket engine that has like, 5 Gs of thrust. Right now, rocket engines are simple. You open up the fucking throttle to hit the spark, and you just go. It's just a bomb that you're riding and hoping it doesn't explode. It's a giant amount of fuel that's burning in one direction. But in the Star Citizen universe, it's fusion powered and it's a bunch of other things like that. Hey, so I've been trying to get to the Northrock's derelicts settlement contracts. No matter how I do, I can't seem to get them to pop. I get a derelict reclaimer Northrock mission and UDM mission delivery, but not others. I'm trying to get desperate to help missing something rep others. I don't know a lot of that stuff phased. You can ask the rest of the chat though. They may be able to help you with the Northrock derelict missions. AstroPub, when are you planning to get the book deal with CIG to write a cool book like it was done with Eve Templar book? I have to write something first, which is actually something I'm doing. But if I was to do anything, CIG, and you wouldn't hire me anyways, so you have your own writers, would do a textbook. It's just a textbook of the Star Citizen universe. That it'd be something like you'd see in a college or high school. Think like a more serious version of I Am America and You Can Too, that kind of thing. If Critical Role can make a killer anime for D&D nerds to flip their wigs and drool based on a much smaller cash flow, I'm pretty sure CR could slice a small piece of the pie, produce a Star Citizen anime. He definitely could. The question, though, is which animation company and at what point? And we actually had to talk about this on the Discord because the Cyberpunk anime has single-handedly reignited people's interest into playing Cyberpunk. Just like Arcane single-handedly reunited people to play, people who'd never played League of Legends to look into it. A good Star Citizen animation production would drive interest into Star Citizen because they already have Mark Hamill. And for those of you who don't know, Mark Hamill's a fucking voice actor. He's been a voice actor for years. So he'd be an easy one to get. That would be the problem, is that Chris Roberts would want to direct it. You'd have to have somebody else take the reins of that. You'd also have the right company. Titmouse would do okay. And we had a discussion. I think Bones would be a good choice. They do a lot of action. They did Full Metal Alchemist. They're doing My Hero Academia. So they have a good concept of action. Though I think everyone else was right as well. Studio Trigger, for those who don't know, are the people who did Edge Runners. They're just really good. And bonus, they really love space. Like, they make excuses to put space in every one of their anime. So if you give them a story that literally starts on the ground with an average person and turns them into a space hero, they would lose their mind. Didn't Trigger do Shine Like Shine Blue? Yes. I mean, if you haven't watched the latest Or if you didn't watch Sandman on Netflix, Mark Hamill does a voice in that. Mark Hamill does a lot of voices in a lot of games. Well, not so much games, a lot of animation. He does a lot of animation roles, not just the Joker. The Joker's his most iconic role, but he's done lots of other game roles as well. Please don't give them more ideas of how to waste more pledges. Tay, I specifically told them that to use all the money that you put into the game into a waste basket, just so they could sell waste baskets online. So all of your money went into that, just for you. No game for you. You just get a you don't even get a waste basket. You get to purchase a waste basket with your own money. You're welcome. He played the pumpkin guy. I can't remember. He plays the architect in Sandman. The pumpkin head. That's Mark Hamill. Yeah, that's him. He's a good voice actor. He can really give a good voice role. Yeah, Trigger did Darling in the Franxx. They did Kill la Kill. They did Gurren Lagann with the company that did Ava. I can't remember the name, but yeah. Quick example, Mark Hamill did one time. Gridman, yeah. Here. And that's the other thing that's great about Star Citizen. I think the key with any video game, let's talk a little bit more general, but also Star Citizen. If they were going to make any sort of entertainment property out of a video game, the key is to not use the main story as the basis, because I think most video game adaptations fail because they try to adapt the actual story of the video game. Even creatively, it just doesn't work, because the key thing about a video game is that it's a video game. It's a playable entertainment piece, and it's never going to be the same watching it as it is playing it. So most games have very deep lore or deep kind of worlds. The best way to do a video game adaptation is to do something set in the same universe, maybe use adjacent characters or minor characters and tell their story, maybe a prequel or a sequel, but don't do the actual story. So Edge Runners, great example. It takes place in Night City, but it doesn't really take place with any of the main characters of the story. Arcane is a little different, because Arcane talks about the story of Jinx and some other characters in League of Legends, but it's not really about League of Legends, because it doesn't take place in the Rift. It doesn't really take place in that whole section. It's like its own section off universe. And both of them did really, really well, because they're telling stories about characters or about events that people don't have any information about. Honestly, the best thing to do is get vibes of the world down and alter it from there for the narrative. Castlevania is a perfect example of an excellent show that doesn't have much to do with the story, even though it's the main characters. Cyberpunk Anime is strange. Like, it's lifted directly from the game. The locations and gear are exactly the same. Yeah. Yeah, stay the fuck away from game plot. Exact. So, like, Star Citizen is uniquely, as a lore aficionado of Star Citizen, I can tell you that Star Citizen is uniquely qualified to do whatever the fuck it wants in those sorts of narratives. Star Citizen is, at its core, based on a universe. It's a universe that we play in. It would be a fucking mistake to do a Squadron 42 series or movie. That just wouldn't work. Just hands down would not work. Telling the story of Captain Noah, I can't remember his last name, but like, he'd be a great idea. Story of the Stanton before you showed up. Cool idea, because there's a static story before you get there. Telling the story of the reunion with Alex Dugan and Maz, and the other one I don't remember her name of. Kid Crimson, for those of you who watch those. Tanya O'Neill, or O'Deal, whatever. She's the space archaeologist, Space Indiana Jones. You could do Cal Mason's stories. Like, there are a ton of stories that CIG's even started writing, which you could just pull out and flesh out more. Yeah, one of the things we talked about was the idea of taking a story about somebody who was at the attack of Vega and having their life go from the attack of Vega, them joining the military, and ending at the Battle of Oberon, which takes place like a year later. People talked about the story of the crew of the Achilles, the Perseus from that like inspired the revival of the Perseuses. The story of the founding of Crusader, the story of the end of the Mezzers. Honestly, Star Citizen is on the same level as Star Wars in terms of what you can do with it. A Star Citizen movie or TV show would be amazing. I don't think Star Citizen's not ready for that. Let me characterize that, because someone in the comments is going to be snarky about this later on, and you're like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Yeah, Star Citizen's not ready for that. There's a lot of development needs to happen with Star Citizen, but it would be a smart idea to explore that later. It's not like Chris Roberts hasn't thought about that, because if you've seen, especially more recent interviews, or more, even not just Chris Roberts, but other game developers, they've thought about it. Like it's crept into their brains. Like, this could be interesting to do this, which at least I think has more to do with the fact that a lot of these game developers probably have ideas that they could do in the Star Citizen universe, use these tools to do a different thing, to tell a single player story, because I think that's the thing I'd expect more than anything is, small one-off stories where you don't even go into space. A survival type game where you play as you have to survive a major apocalypse or an event where you have just to, story driven like that, which is 10 hours, or a game like Privateer but single player, where you have a story about being a pirate or a rebel or a freelance mercenary or just a trader. Verse Truck Simulator, where you just trade and stuff like that. Those sorts of ideas, which you could take the base concept of Star Citizen or Squadron 42 and then craft it into a small experience that you can sell for $15-20 and people would play it. I feel like Star Citizen show is just a bunch of shorts a la Marvel's What If would be pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, something like Star Wars, whatever that was, the Animatrix style, where you just do a bunch of different animation studios telling different stories from the universe. Not a destroyed Connie in the space. What's the point of it? Any usage? It's just pulled me out of QT. So Zal, that happens sometimes. Yeah, you can actually go through that wreck and find materials. There's stuff inside of that destroyed Connie. But it's usually, when those things happen, it's the prequel to a pirate attack. Sometimes Star Citizen's bugged and those parts don't spawn. But the idea is that you get pulled out of Quantum because there's a wrecked Connie. There's usually pirates who then show up and be like, "Hey, what's up, buddy?" Because that's what they do. They intentionally drag wrecks through quantum lanes to try to get people out. Is Greyhead Gamer still around? No, I don't think so. I haven't heard from him in a long time. I have to change my days off so I can catch these things instead of having to go to work. But don't worry about it, Matthew, because I actually these are later in the these get uploaded afterwards, so they're always available for you to talk to watch after the fact. My question is, why not have a second product that is not Star Citizen or Star Citizen as a secondary product or another game to sell to make another source of revenue to fund the company? They do. It's called Squadron 42. That's what Squadron 42 is. Squadron 42 is a second source of income that they're going to make money off of. Squadron 42 and Star Citizen are the same game. I cannot explain to you enough. They are the same game. They're built on the exact same architecture. They use the exact same tools, the exact same materials. So when I say something like what you see in Star Citizen is what Squadron 42 is right now, more or less, that's it. That's all of it. That's the tweet. two sides of the same coin. They're literally the same game. Like, down to everything. Down to how the playing character interacts with the universe. Like, fundamentally the same game. I just want to wake up in Area 18 and get out of the right side of the bed. I know the feeling. Well, we thought this war was going to be that. It still might be. I still have a serious belief that if they packaged all of the Origin Systems electronic access games as a free-to-play suite that you could play for, to get in more people, it would be a great way of getting in more people. But you'd have to really pay attention to it, which I don't have the money for. Ship sales will only continue until the full release of the multiplayer, then subscription kicks in more sustainable income. You're not going to have a subscription-based system. There's no way there's going to be a subscription-based system, not unless it's not a required one. It's definitely going to be an optional one. But you're always going to have microtransactions, and I'm going to rip this Band-Aid off right now. They're never going to stop selling ships. You are high if you think they're going to stop selling ships. Yes, they said they're going to stop selling ships at the very beginning. That was 10 years ago. Shit changes. There's no way they're going to stop selling ships. They do, it's Squadron 42, and the best part, it uses all the same assets and most of the same code as Star Citizen. Exactly, yeah. They took a Toyota pickup apart and made it a Toyota flatbed truck, basically. I am both high and think they will always sell ships. What do I use as Stripe controls? I use twin T16000Ms. Just kind of chill on my desk here. 4 million members at $10 a month sub is pretty decent income. You're never going to get 4 million people. There are 4 million people who signed up for the website. That does not mean there's 4 million people who have the game. There's maybe 2 million people who have the game. Maybe. And you're not going to get 2 million people to buy a subscription. It's just not going to happen. That dream is a pipe dream that's never going to happen. That whole, like, I hate to do this. It's not 1999 anymore. They've tried that. Other companies have tried that and failed spectacularly. There is no way to support a game unless you have an insane amount of content. And let's be real here. This is Cloud Imperium Games. There's no fucking way they will have enough content to justify a subscription-based model. Either A, because they give too much of a shit about their employees to burn them out that way, or B, they just don't have the time. It's never going to happen. Not even with all of the tools done and everything. That's just not going to happen. This isn't... If you think Star Citizen is WoW, you are high. Like, I keep saying that, but like... Dude, I need to know what you are smoking. It's never going to happen. So what's the next best model? What CIG has right now is the best model. It works. Free-to-play is honestly the best model, but no one would go for it in the Star Citizen community, plus people have already purchased it. So the buy-to-play model is probably their best model. Am I a bad person to personally be okay with this in CIG's particular case? What, for the subscription model, or for their current system? No, I think it's fine. They found something that works. People are okay with it, and they've balanced it out by the fact that none of the larger ships that cost more are ever going to be usable solo. They're going to always require some level of multi-crew, either by paying AI or NPCs or modifying your ship. You just need that. They've done a pretty good job of balancing that out. I think there is still a model for for an optional subscription model, what they have now. If they give more in-game perks, like I've been a big proponent of saying anyone who has a subscription has LTI on all their ships. The second that subscription elapses, you no longer have LTI on your ships. You don't have to buy that ship. You get automatic LTI for it if you have subscription. Because I don't think LTI is that much of an advantage. I think it's a way of preventing yourself from losing a ton of in-game money, but I don't think it's that much of an advantage. Death Trooper, or Face Kitten, I saw Face Kitten and Death Trooper and stuff. Nothing CIG does will ever not cause whining. This is just the reality of the internet. People are going to complain about everything you do. It's also a great incentive for players with large fleet, yeah. Gotta give us route to Odin first. They gotta get us out of fucking Stanton first. There's no pay to win with any of the ships, just pay for convenience to skip the grind to get them. And people always don't take into advantage the reputation. Paul, did you ever play Path of X? What do you think about this kind of income model for Star Citizen? I played Path of Exile at some point. Was that? I don't remember when I bought it and played it. It was okay, but I don't know about the model that much. I don't remember if I purchased it or if it was free. I can't remember which one it is. Yeah, I know Path of Exile. I just don't. It's the like Diablo type game, right? LTI CCUs can't be qualified as pay to win, or can be. No. There's no way LTI CCUs can be qualified as pay to win. Because as every white knight will ever tell you, what's winning? What's winning in Star Citizen? There's no win condition in Star Citizen. It's a sandbox. So you already have that going against you. And on top of that, if you say, oh, well, me killing you is a win condition. Buying a ship is not going to guarantee you to kill me. Especially now, I could just run the fuck away. If you're shitty at your ship, it doesn't matter if you have the best ship in the game. I have seen players who are good with Auroras beat people with significantly better ships. Like, hands down, beat them in a dogfight. Star Citizen's too much of a skill-based game to just buy your way to greatness. You keep spawning that LTI ship and you keep blowing up and salvaging it for parts, you'll never make it near the amount of money that you do if you just do missions. CIG is going to ensure that you won't do that. And they'll have something either in the way of insurance fraud or just the cost. Because like right now, the way that Star Citizen works is you just have a set timer. In the future, the way that Quanta works, you won't be able to just spawn infinite amounts of reclaimers and blow them up and then salvage them. Because they have to get those reclaimers from the dealership or from the factory and send them to you. That's what the timer is going to be. It's going to be the Quanta moving that ship to your location. So if you're in the bumfuck nowhere, it's going to take a lot longer for that ship to get to there than if it's in civilized space. So the timers, the more you blow up, the longer the timers are going to get. And again, I can't just crash my car and get all the... I couldn't like take all the parts off my car and sell them for more money than my car is worth. Guarantee you that's not going to be possible. It's not possible now. It won't be possible in Star Citizen. Your ship's parts are not worth more than your ship. So, question. Sorry if it's been asked, but do you think the ships purchased with cold cash will be able to get perma destroyed? No. You'll never be able to completely lose those ships. You always have a way of getting them back. Maybe not easy, but Do I think Machinima is the best platform to make Star Citizen stories like Final Fantasy? Yeah, I think Machinima's got a lot of options, but you're gonna definitely need to know how to work the tools. I just got here. What do you mean by $500 million still in alpha? Star Citizen's raised $500 million. It's $500 million and still in alpha. We did a whole thing in the very beginning, just talking about like the controversy. You see, there's literally every gaming brag out there has said something about Star Citizen making $500 million and still in alpha, no release in sight, all that sort of thing. So just writing in on that and explaining it's not that much of a deal, especially since the way Star Citizen, where has it come from, where is it going, and comparing it to any other games company out there, it's nothing. Yeah, but a significant amount of Care Bears that even think they are incapable of running, that's a psych issue. They'll just blow themselves up. That's what happens right now. Where did it come from? Where did it go? Where did it come from? I know that, Joe. Beating bigger ships in my blade. Yeah, it's... let's put it this way. 2 Avengers, 1 fight each other. One spent $300, the best fighter, and the other one still has Aurora. Who wins? 2 Avenger 1s? That's a false... You're never going to have that. You're thinking of a perfect scenario which doesn't exist. I have a super soldier and a super soldier, and I give one a squirt gun and one a machine gun. Who's gonna win? Like, that's not a fucking argument. That's not even a rational pay to win argument, because it never happens. 1-to-1 is never gonna happen in Star Citizen, and it doesn't matter. I can still fucking the one with the super soldier with the squirt gun can still run away. Like, they don't have to fight. Especially if they're as good as the other person, they could just fucking leave. There's nothing that stops the person with the better ship, you know, from stopping the person who's the worst ship, who can run away. If they're good pilots, they can run away. All right, 2 noobs. It would be a miracle if anyone killed each other. They'd probably crash and blow themselves up before they could even get close to hurting each other. It's a false equivalency. All of those are false equivalencies. The reality is that the way that Star Citizen is built, there is never going to be a situation in like a typical shooter where you have 2 people in an alley, they're going to be facing each other off, and they both see each other at the same time. It's a possibility. And whoever has either the fastest trigger or the best weapon will win. That happens. In Star Citizen, you will almost never have that. And if you do, there's almost always an escape route for one of them. Because the time to kill is already super like high, and it's just going to get higher as we get more things. And then it'll be less kill and more disable and all those sorts of things. Your PC internet connection will matter more, honestly. Yeah, but it happens with every game. And even then, it'll probably not be as much of an issue at all. And mostly cuties are a thing, but they could either outpace them or kick up some like. But at that point, Delta Phoenix, you're not dealing with 1-to-1, because there's no way a fucking Cutlass Blue is going to have enough speed to chase down even an Aurora. It's a fast ship, but the Auroras are just better. There's always going to be a way for that Aurora to get away. And there's like, or even if it's 2 ships, then it's not even fair, because you're going to always have 2 ships. Yeah, this dude's got an M50 and he's got a dude with a Mantis. It's like, who gives a shit? Now you have to have another player and another ship. Question, have you spent much time in the Gladiator cockpit in combat? I don't see anyone flying them. I actually do have a quite significant amount. I just don't, I don't do PvP with it. It's good. It's a great ship for, currently, for PvE content. The missiles, the torpedoes, and that fucking turret are, mwah. It's just not as good as a Scorpius or what's it called? A Hurricane or a Vanguard. Like they just outclass it in so many levels. Like a Harbinger is so much better than a Gladiator. It's not even funny. Redeemer you're talking about is like several things higher. Because a Redeemer is much more up there with, say, like a Freelancer Miss, you know, or even a 600. Ping isn't a big deal in Star Citizen. It's not a hair trigger as a lot of shooters. You can get terrible ping. Some of bad connections would almost confer an advantage. Statement: the Constellation Taurus is a severely underrated Swiss Army knife, and people need to know this. It's practically the Cuddy Black on steroids. Both have the same capabilities. Rant over. It's a decent ship. The problem about the Taurus is that I don't think it's significant increase in cargo capacity is a good idea overall. Okay, let me do something because someone suggested I do this. So, no option in Twitch Studio. What the hell? Oh no, it's Twitch. Right. Hey, Jordan Moreno. It's great for PvE. If you can get a flight of gladiators together, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you. Gladiators, 2 or 3 gladiators working together, 6 people and 3 gladiators. It's a snowplow. Nothing survives that. But it's just not worth it in terms of like the overall things. Question: do you think there'll be speakers on capital ships that players can use to alert the whole ship, like intercom system? 100%. I think if CIG is smart enough, they'll do more dedicated comms trees for larger ships, just in general, to allow for people to the captain to speak to the chief officers of every section, like an engineer, gunnery, the head of any kind of marine detachment you have, the head of any fighter departments, like that kind of thing. And then those people will be able to talk to their groups. Test Squadron, best Squadron, yes. Auroras blot out the sun. I don't think it'll be loudspeakers in the sense of like everyone on the ship. Maybe you'll hear everyone on the ship will do that, but comes down to how dumb you are and how good you are. If you're willing to risk your life that could possibly get you, or possibility of retaliation of an org or NPC faction. And that's the thing. That's why the whole free, like, pay to win argument goes out the window for me, because it's like, it's all about skill. It has nothing to do with what kind of ship you have. It has everything to do with your skill and your knowledge of the game. I want to tell ITC I'm tired of getting parking violations, yeah. Oh, I'm hoping for a switch to initiate battle lights for the whole ship in the room. I hope so too. That's going to be so long. Oh, the good old Lancer is taking down Valks with 3 kilometers away with 4 Quarler laser guns. Yeah. Will we be able to hack those speakers and play nursery rhymes through the intercoms? I don't know if that'll be possible. So with 318 soon in PES, what should the next set of milestones? What should be the next set of milestones? I mean, obviously, like Pyro 4.0. Pyro and server meshing. Let's before we watch it inside Star Citizen, because it's been like 2 hours, right? Almost 2 hours. We haven't watched that yet, so let's watch that here in a moment. But I do also want to set some expectations, because here's the reality, and this is something that, again, it pisses me off beyond belief. It's my biggest problem with CIG, which is CIG often knows well ahead of time if something is going to be different from what they think, but they are too much of cowards, especially management. Management is too cowardly to actually tell us when things go wrong. Because, I don't know, they're afraid of people getting the wrong message, they're afraid of bad PR, I don't know. They just panic. which I understand, but at the same time, like, y'all are not a small company anymore. You've made $500 million, all right? Act like it. And don't think we know. Yeah, we definitely need more lights in Carol. We need more lights in a lot of ships. But let's set some expectations. There's no RT yet. I haven't done that in a while. 318 is not what you think it is. 318 is 317-2. With Tier 0 salvage and some new ships. You will not see any significant change to trade. You will not see any significant change to the things you think you're going to have. You will simply have new technology under the hood. You maybe, if you're lucky, will see a new event. But you're not going to see much of anything else. It's not a bad patch, but don't go in expecting some sort of game-changing fix. It's going to feel like a 0.2 patch because it's just going to be, it'll probably almost feel like a bonus, like an increase of performance, because Gen 12 is going to be in there. Everything's going to be moved to the back end for PES. They've said specifically that the only way that salvage works is with the new cargo mesh system, but they haven't said that it works for commodity trading, just for salvage. And when they start micro-analyzing that, you can tell that there's something going on, because they've done that before, where they're like, oh yeah, it's this whole thing, and then it got smaller and smaller and smaller, and now we only have confirmation that it's salvage is going to use the new system. They haven't said at all if commodity trading is going to use this new system. We know where they want to go, but where they want to go and where they're going is completely different. Will we see cargo load timers? I don't think so. I would be surprised if they got the commodity system working with the new cargo system. If they did, great. But according to their own internal estimates, the Evocati is releasing next week. We have yet to see anything on cargo swapovers or anything like that. Makes sense. The 318 got moved out when they said 318 might come out. I was confused. They said, there's some warning. Where's 318? I doubt it. I imagine the only physical cargo would be salvage. I think so too. Because it's the only thing they've confirmed. And we're a week away from PTU. So unless something, or for a week away from Evocati, unless that thing gets delayed even further, which it could, or they add a brand new system in midway through Evocati, which again, they could do. They tend not to do that. Will I see more frames? Possibly. Yes, maybe, no. It depends. Gen 12 should increase client performance because it's not going to use the same old janky code. It'll be using new code. If you have tech that gives you okay frames right now, you will probably get better frames. I don't know if it'll give you a 60 frames solid for everywhere you go, but performance should be improved for client side. Everything else is going to be on fire, but performance should be a little bit better. Do I have Evocati status? I used to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I can tell you what it's been like in the past, but if it was an Evocati right now, everyone would know because leaks would be all over it. I'm sorry, there's no leaks. The pipeline, whatever they're called. Is there more PES in 318? There's no PES. Are you talking about PES? There's going to be PES in 318, but it's just going to be what we have at 317 too. You're not going to have log out in your ship. You're not going to crash in your ship and log back in right into your ship. You're going to be back at the station when you log back into that server where you last were with all your stuff. The heartbeat stuff is still going to work. I'm pretty sure about that. The PES is basically what we have with 3.17.2 right now, where some things will persist. And that's it. They give and take Evocati? Well, it depends. I formally left Evocati years ago because I said I don't want to have to be held to these standards of I can't talk about leaks because I signed an NDA. That NDA, by the way, was null and void in like 2018. This was a 2-year NDA. But I didn't want to like risk talking about leaks because I also was Evocati and get because I don't want to break NDA, you know. So I basically signed it and said, hey, I don't want to be any part of this. Thank you for this, but I need to be able to talk about leaks. They still give me access, even though I formally said no. So. Well, heck yeah, I had no idea you were Evo. Yeah, I was. What's the best way to get it? Just play and give a lot of feedback. Feedback and issue council are the best way of doing it. Persistent entity zebras? Yes. They are releasing the new Pez candy machine. I'm fuming. Yes, I know, MANCHACA. Basically, again, think of it this way. As a gamer, as someone who's playing the game, you will probably not see much of a difference between 3.17.2 and 3.18. You might get a little bit more performance, but fundamentally the way that the game plays is not going to change with 3.18. Just do not think that's going to happen. Do not go into 3.18 thinking that's going to happen. CIG may still do something with cargo hauling. I really hope they do, but they have given us zero indication other than a work in progress in-engine concept of how they wanted to do load timers or like the load screens for the Mobi-Glass. That was in like June, and we haven't seen or heard anything. And they went out of their way to say this is extremely early days. These are very early concepts. These are just things that we can get things to work and play with the idea. They were so many caveats about that, which told me immediately like they're not anywhere near getting this done. And they even said, like, oh, it's not really a priority, all these sorts of things. So it's like, we're coming down to brass tacks and we still haven't heard anything about it. Don't expect it. Later, Jordan. Long live the dreamers and the dip lovers. Long live the avocados. Wow, guys, I don't understand the NDA because I like working in this fucking industry. Don't break NDAs, people. You break NDAs, you will never work. You'll never get any work from any gaming company ever again. If you're a streamer or content creator, it's the stupidest fucking thing is to break NDA. Because you get a little bit of bonus, you get a little bit of like rep bonus, or not rep bonus, you get a little bit of a clout for it. That clout goes away in seconds, but the fucking game companies never fucking forget. And they'll tell everyone else. Like, I can guarantee you that Galactica and Tyler alone, and Xylo alone, know more people in the games industry than you do. And they will tell people, this person broke NDA, they do not work with them, they're not trustworthy. And that word will spread to the entire games industry because the game industry is an incestuous little, tiny little pocket you never realize. Yeah, no better. Cal Mason Pez dispenser. Wow, perfect. I hope when the game finally releases, they do something special for Evo teams over the years, like a memorial or something. I like the idea of having a memorial wall for like some historical event with like names on it, and all those names just be the backers of Star Citizen. Question: what kind of ship do you think will be the next free to fly? It's hard to tell. Probably the four winners of IAE, would be my guess. So the 600i, not the 600i, the Scorpius, the Pisces, the Carrack, and the MSR will be the ones. Oh yeah, Ghost. Ghost has paid me specifically to get you to say in Old Man Al Hurston's voice, uwu. Question. Oh yeah, I said that. Whereas Suj Kosi can only get on the knockoff Pez dispenser. Straight to flyable? Well, the next straight to flyable ship is what you're asking? I have no idea. Yes, Algrid, but in the Old Man Al voice. That's what she wants. Okay, I'll do it, AstroPub. My best Old Man Hurston impression ain't the best. Isn't there a planned tribute for Leonard Nimoy on Terra? There probably is. Hard to get into Evocati when you work week on week off shift, even with previous testing experience. Yeah, it's not easy. That's probably a bridge too far, Ghost. Good to see you, Love Officers. Thank you, Alex. Alec, thanks for coming in. All right, let's watch the IAE. Let's watch the ISC. I watched half of it, and it's all right, but it's one of those 2A IAEs, which is not bad.
Star Citizen is a globally distributed project. With 5 studios across 4 countries and 2 continents, people from all over the world have come to Cloud Imperium to help make those tandem games we're creating all that they can be. But the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42, with some minor exceptions for Xi'an and Banu, have been a mostly English affair so far. That single language focus is not uncommon during the development of any project, but as we approach the next major milestones for Star Citizen and Squadron 42, it's become time to begin the process of expanding our language support to match those of our players and communities around the globe. With that in mind, we'd like to take this episode of Inside Star Citizen and introduce you to one of the newest teams being built here. Now, currently less than 6 months old, let's meet some of the folks working to bring localization support to Star Citizen and Squadron 42.
It's been 6 months, chat. That's pretty cool. So, again, they're going to talk about it, but I'm going to explain why localization is important. Star Citizen is a global game. There are lots of people. The majority of backers who don't speak English speak French, German, and there is a surprisingly high number of backers who speak Japanese, Korean, and either Mandarin or Cantonese. It is surprising how big this game is outside. It's still small, niche, because it's the way Star Citizen is, but it has a very large focus. Even there's lots of Russians and Ukrainians and Norwegians and Danes and Swedes and Finnish who play and play Star Citizen. It is really a global game. There's large numbers of Spanish speakers, people from Spain, people from Latin American countries. There's just a lot. And localization is important because anyone who's ever watched a foreign film or a foreign cartoon and watched the subs versus the dubs over a while will pick up that there's a lot of idioms and sayings and little quirks with any language which only translate in that language and don't translate well to other languages. So if they want to get the right flavor across, saying an idiom in English, which is common for writers to do, may go over the heads of non-English speaking people. So
I'm Yagoda. I am the localization lead at CH.
Soy Brice Fajardo, soy especialista en control de calidad de localización y vengo de España.
I'm Jonathan Lowndes, and I am the localization and English dialogue pipeline producer.
Hola, mi nombre es María Laura Palestrini, soy especialista en localización para español en CIG.
Donc je m'appelle Yannick Simon-Klein et je suis le spécialiste localisation à CIG à Francfort.
안녕하세요. 한국어 로컬라이제이션 스페셜리스트 최유진이라고 합니다.
Localization is much more than just translation.
We have the full control of the tone we want to give to the game.
The localization specialists want to break the language barrier.
We're really, really trying to give players the best experience we can.
And understanding how important it is to take games to other audiences.
We've started thinking about localization very early at CAG.
Well, usually localization is one of the last steps in game development.
In this particular situation, we wanted to make sure we have aligned everything from
Legal text, marketing, dialogue, scripts for dubbing, anything that has to do with UI, descriptions.
We want to make sure that everyone can enjoy the game, regardless of wherever they are in the world.
Normally what I do, day-to-day basis is adapt to the text type I have to deal with pertaining translation.
We also have to adapt that whatever is not translatable in words is actually understandable anyway.
It's about experience, right? It's about culture.
I found out from the Korean community, they actually made this Korean patch for Star Citizen. And I guess that made me realize the users are actually willing to play games in their own.
CIG, the community team, was just, I believe, in South Korea. So, that was surprising when I heard that. And then I saw this and was like, how many fucking South Koreans play Star Citizen? Because that surprised the shit out of me, because I know, generally speaking, South Korea and Japan have gaming cafe cultures. But again, that's based off of my knowledge, which is formulated 10 years ago. So I don't know if there's been a big change in gaming culture in Korea and Japan, away from gamer cafes and towards more personal computers. Maybe because of 2020, because of COVID, people had to build their own computers to play games. But it seemed that was surprising to me,
Own language, if they could. That actually motivates me a lot.
There are a lot of conversations with other departments to make this as immersive as possible.
As LQA specialist, I'm in charge to, once we have those translations implemented in the game, to ensure that those translations are.
All right, I'm gonna defend the folks at this point. This has nothing to do with development in the way that most players want to see. This is fascinating for people who want to see how the sausage is made, because these are the kind of people who do a lot of job. They work a lot. They do a lot of work to make this game playable for people who don't just speak English, or just make it easier for people who, because not everyone speaks English extremely well or enough to read. It'd be like me trying to play a game in Spanish. I could get most of the translations okay, because me hablo un poco español, pero no es muy, I'm not fluent anymore. I used to be, but it's been such a long time and I lost it because I haven't used it much. So this is fascinating for people who really want to see development, and these people are unsung heroes in the industry. So
both working correctly and they are correct in the context.
We use a tool called Starwords, in which narrative inputs their English text, and after they approve it, it gets sent to us via the same tool, during which process we export it out into our translation tool. Then we translate it, proofread it, edit it, and do any necessary corrections as needed, and then export it back into Starwords, and from Starwords into the game.
Visually, you can see the work that an art team or a cinematics team do, and you can go, yeah, I can see the flair there. But it's not until you speak a lot of these languages, you understand that maybe there's an Easter egg, maybe the wording is similar, is lifted from a Han Solo monologue or something, and then you're like, oh my god, you squeezed that in and it fits. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
We have to be very careful to adapt the product to there is in a format and appropriate form for each locale.
That reminds me, he said something. This is something I'd love to hear in Star Citizen. There's an idiom, I don't remember which it is. I think it's Mexican. It may be another one, but used a lot in Texas, which is something that goes around of siéntense or te siéntense or siente. Siente. It effectively means sit down or I will sit you down. It's a popular one with the chancla wielding abuelas y madres en Texas. It's a great idiom because it means business if you understand what it means. It's not something you say like lightly. It's like sit down, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. It'd be a great one. Siéntete or te siento. Yeah, thank you. It's those sorts of things which are pretty cool.
To be fair, I think a lot of Korean people are fairly familiar with Western culture, so we use a lot of like English words. Sometimes
my wildfire crew bosses all the time. Yeah,
like professional terms.
A word that is very, very common, and it's like in European Spanish people, to grab something is ser coger, which in Latin America, in most countries in Latin America, it means to have intercourse. So that's a really funny difference.
I know Latin American Spanish enough to know that's not what it is.
As a producer, I have my eyes 12, 18, 20 months down the line at any given point, because I live in spreadsheets and I have to try and plan everyone's schedules out all the way into the future. So having recently been spending a lot of time in that, there's some stuff in there that I'm not allowed to talk about, but I can't wait until everyone gets to see it.
We are all very passionate about the projects, both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, and we want to make sure that the translations provided are the best possible. We know that our community is very engaged, and we know there have been other translation endeavors for Star Citizen as well. But we try to engage every single user, not only the people who have played the game for a considerable duration of time. So bear with us, not every translation will be as you think it could be. We will try to make improvements as much as possible, and we hope that you're going to like it.
The Siege of Orison was the Persistent Universe's biggest...
That reminds me, I do want to bring this up. I forgot who it is, but I've had members of the French community and the German community approach me who are translating my Astro Historian videos and turning them into their own language to try to translate it. So it's happened before. So I know the community is out there doing those sorts of things. I think the Spanish community has asked me too if they could do it, and my usual response is go for it. Like, I am very very serious on this. When I hear people say, "Oh, well, Paul does lore," I just do one lore. You can do more lore, please. Like freaking Board Gamer and I always forget his editor's name, Zin, and Zin do their own lore videos. It's fine. They do well. I get more people involved in lore is better. There's more lore people out there than you realize, and they just don't get a lot of like reputation. They don't get a lot of recognition. So, yeah. So like, yeah, more stuff.
And most ambitious dynamic
do it,
event
Face.
yet, pushing at the seams of AI, server performance, FPS systems, and more. And while it recently returned to players in last week's Pirate Week celebration, we wanted to check in with the team and discuss some of the fixes and adjustments that went into this second wave of events, and the advancements to all of Star Citizen that came from this technology-stressing event.
We were watching the same stream at the same time, and I see Elliot
giving him little hints,
desperate to give away the secret.
I was just very excited.
And he's getting more and more obvious. And I'm like, Elliot, maybe... To a point where I can't write what I want to say in the chat anymore, so I'm texting him.
Stop.
Just stop. You are going to give it away. And ultimately he did. The whole point of Siege was to push FPS and healing gameplay, right? Like, and looting and all that. Like, been in the game for several releases, some of it, and like it wasn't being used to its fullest extent.
Luke. Do I need to compile Senator Armin Strong's attempt at the Siege of Orison to show you just how many people Senator Armin Strong managed to kill with his own bare hands with no armor whatsoever? Far too many. It was like I killed like 12 people in hand-to-hand, 12 AI in hand-to-hand combat. It was nuts. The senator leads the way. Yeah, James Johnson's the other one who does really good and stuff, yeah. Nothing but the power of nanomachines, son.
And we thought, well, what better way to use that and actually show players that they, the consequences of being downed.
The cool thing about Siege is when we have a big event like this, it gets us a lot of sort of improvements to the game. Because of Siege, there was some sort of more of a focus on looking at some of the back-end type performance, and they found issues, and that's unlocked 100-player servers for people. It helped to push towards it. Over the course of it, like already running, me and Luke was watching streams, and we was having constant conversations as to ways we could improve this mission, not only for future iterations on it, but also just in the quick patches we can get out. We fixed the bug where when you completed an objective, you wasn't instantly paid. You should have been instantly paid, but instead what was happening was it wasn't being given instantly, but it was collecting, so when the mission ended, it awarded it all at once.
We fixed a number of flow breaking issues as well, like where bosses would just fall through the floor and be unreachable.
We added an objective, a secondary objective for disabling the anti-air and give a reward for it, so players knew that it was something you could do, but also it isn't the main focus.
We've taken steps to prevent griefing around that first area that you get off of a shuttle. We now spawn Crusader security that kind of take up guard posts at that shuttle stop. We hope that's enough to kind of ward off the griefers.
We changed how the ending kind of happened. Before it was very like you got an audio line saying please leave, and then that kind of reoccurred. We also added this to the HUD so players can see actively a please leave. When any player leaves the area, the mission will complete for them and they'll get all their extra rewards that were required. One thing we noticed was players were server hopping when the event had finished to try getting another event that had just started, and because of that they wasn't getting all the rewards from the mission because of that bug I previously explained as well. We are working on dialogue improvements.
Near us out of the sky, I got heavy hits locking down
Now
each of the
arriving
platforms.
at Solanki platform.
You don't stand a chance.
As we noticed, a few issues and ways we could tighten up some of the dialogue and audio lines. Working on extra things to do in the mission, so even if people do arrive late, they'll have something to do. And many other things like that, but I don't want to go too much into it.
Thanks to everyone who's participated in Siege of Horizon. It's been really fun watching you guys and hearing your feedback on playing the event.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the localization team is hard at work reinterpreting Squadron 42 for several languages and cultures around the world. That turning an eye to Star Citizen will begin with external web resources before they dive into the depths of the Stanton system. And that the Siege of Horizon wasn't just a fun event for our players, it pushed the underlying technologies in ways that have improved experiences for every aspect of life in the persistent universe. Now remember that our CitizenCon livestream will be this October 8th at 8 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. UTC, and it's really like an entire season of ISCL crammed into a single quarter day. There's gonna be some cool stuff. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all here next week.
It was alright. I think it was bad, but it's in 2 weeks, yeah. Siege of Orison, I don't think is going to be as good as they hope. It'll never be as good as Xenothreat until they fix some of the problems. I think 3.18 will go a long way to improving the experience of things like Siege of Orison. I'd love to see Siege of Orison happen in 3.18 once it's released, or maybe 3.19, but those will help a little bit. Hey, Skis Therapy. Save some cash and tell the wife. I don't know. Thank you for gifting that sub, by the way, first Tasty to MANCHACA. And I didn't see Fair Assault rating 38 minutes ago because I was too talking, but, you know, hey, Fair Assault. A fuck ton. I say far fishy. I live in, I'm sure in South Korea is getting huge in gaming from what I hear. Yeah, South Korea is big in gaming, but the thing is that for those who don't know, there's a popular thing up until very recently called the gaming cafe. It even happened in America for a while. But so most people, instead of gaming at home, they would just go out to a cafe and kind of treat it like an arcade, where they'd have lines of these computers lined up, and you could pay for a certain amount of time. You could sit there with a computer and play whatever game you wanted to. So things like WoW, things like LoL, Dota, those sorts of things would come out a lot. So the changes to Siege of Orison sound pretty good. These were all made for this current Siege of Orison. So got that Siege mandible armor, yeah, baby. Siege is a loot fest. Best loot comes from the Siege, way better than the bunker loot. You were talking about AI in a server of 5 to 10 players. AI is pretty on point. Yes, but that's not going to happen until PES is implemented. I think PES will go a long way to improving experience of places like Siege of Orison and bunkers, where like the AI is not going to be derpy, because a lot of the load is going to be taken off of the dedicated game servers and put onto the PES servers. So the experience of having one player on a server, or 1 to 5 players on the server, is what you're going to have for when you have 100 players on the server, because the GGS doesn't give a shit about anything that's not being streamed into the players. Xenothreat is going to be interesting when it returns. There'll be so many ways griefers can derail the event now, and they have an uphill battle to balance that. Question: where is the female Ninetales and Guards NPCs? That's actually a good question, and the answer is they've been working on a lot of the female character models and for NPCs in Squadron. Yes, Marketech has females with guards, but Hurston doesn't. Well, it's hard to tell because they don't have full things, and I don't think Orison does. You've killed some female Ninetales. I haven't seen them personally, but I'm sure they exist. If you've seen them, but a lot of stuff they're working on right now is like, because I don't know if. Well, yeah, I think all the stuff that's in Siege, all the Ninetales gear is unisex, so. Yes, I do have. If you played the Lockdown, they actually have a lot of the female voiceovers too. Yeah, the Siege of Orison is pretty complicated. I think Xenothreat had the benefit of being drawn out of a set of missions that connected to culminate in an epic fight. There's definitely a lot more chance for interesting interactions with decent AI and smarter AI behavior. The token pool system. Let me explain to you the token pool system for a moment, because it's a really interesting thing. So most... the way that Star Citizen is going to balance AI in Squadron and in the game itself is through a system called the token system. So the token system is built to be flexible and whatever. So you can think of a group of AI is a group. So CIG can set them as like one entity or one group of people. And then that group will have a pool of tokens. And if the AI wants to fight, if they see a player and they want to fire, they can pull a token to fire their weapon, basically to aim down and shoot. But if there's not enough tokens in that group, then only the people who have enough tokens, so there's 5 people and only 2 tokens, 2 AI will shoot and the other 2 have to do something else. Dive for cover, charge, maneuver, something else. So their AI will flip between combat to avoiding or to like closing the distance from melee or something else like that. So it'll give the illusion of these AI being unique and different, even if they have similar kind of character like profiles inside of them. So there is definitely a case for unique story experiences with Siege of Orison, with functioning AI, with that new AI system, because you could have completely different reactions to two in the same building in two different Siege of Orisons. You know, they could rush you with shotguns. They could be standing back and trying to shoot at you. They could do being both at the same time, where you're pinned inside of an elevator. You know, there's lots of options for that variety, but the game isn't even stable enough to support a lot of that behavior. So we have to wait until 3.18 comes in and that other kind of stuff happens. Like a 5-man unit in Halo Wars? I think something like that, yeah. I kind of miss Xenothreat and Lockdown. I got stuck in a hurricane. I haven't had electricity or water until now. Oof. Ouch. Hey, Hazeline, how you doing? Sadly, we don't see any AI improvements until server meshing. No, I disagree. I fundamentally disagree that we won't see AI improvements with server meshing. I think we'll see AI improvements with PES. Because there's nothing inherent to server meshing that will make AI better. That's it. Because eventually CIG is going to have to come up with a contingency that every single player in a server, in a shard, is going to be at one location. So they have to improve the single shard, the single server experience as much as they can without relying on server meshing, which means they're going to have to get that PES system to work really fucking well. Because otherwise, you're never going to have 1,000 people in a shard. You're going to only have whatever the maximum number you can get in one server, which is right now, especially during events, is like 80 people. Eventually, they'll get dynamic server meshing, which will allow for a little bit different, but we don't know when that's going to come. It's definitely not coming next year. It may come in the year after that or year after that. We don't know. But it's not coming in the near future. So they're going to have to try to optimize as much as they can for single server experience to get as many players in a single server and then distribute the load over multiple servers. PES is doing nothing in terms of server performance. I fundamentally disagree. You don't understand how PES, unless you work for CIG and you haven't told us, that's not how PES works. PES, it takes all the information that is currently loaded onto the DGS, the dedicated game server, off of the dedicated game server. The only thing the dedicated game server will process is whatever the players on the server see. Right now, the dedicated game server has to load all information, including storage of all locations and items everywhere in the map, into the server. It doesn't have to load it onto the client like it used to, but it still has to load it onto the server, to the dedicated game server. All that information is going to be moved off of the dedicated game server to the PES. That's the reason why right now you have such shitty FPS behavior for AI, or just shitty AI in general, is because the server is being dragged down with all this information they have to store. So removing that storage off of the DGS and only having it focus on the performance of the game where the players are at should improve everything around the game. It's going to cause other issues where what gets stowed and unstowed and when it stows and unstows is going to be completely different. It's going to be fucked up beyond belief. But that should improve the performance. Mobile Stars is an app you control NPCs or you hire but you issuing commands. Not gonna happen. They're gonna make you stay in the game as much as possible. I think you may have the ability to have a mobile app where you can schedule for AI to refit and refuel your ships, maybe load your ships, but I don't think you're gonna be able to like remotely control like that kind of stuff. PES is more efficient way of calling and storing data. Yes, but currently right now, all that data is stored on the DGS, which is why the performance is so bad. Everything is stored in the DGS. Everything. PES is not, you don't have any storage on the DGS with PES. It's simply calling and storing. It doesn't store in the DPS at all. It stores in PES. And that should remove the stressors on the game. But those items aren't being stored on the DGS. Dark Nail, that's what I'm saying. It's being stored in the entity graph, not on the servers. It doesn't need to be rendered into the server unless the player's looking at it. That's the point of PES. It completely removes everything from the server unless a player is staring at it. Now, it will hurt performance if there are players staring at staring at a bunch of different dirty things, which could have impact performance. But right now, the servers have to account for the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if not billions of entities that are on the server that players aren't staring at all the time. They have to they have to save the location of anything they have to keep around, like boxes or anything that they can't cull has to be stored in the DGS right now. And that is, over time, that junk builds up, and that's what causes a lot of the degradation of the servers, or like server tick rates, which is the big problem. Like, nothing is being stored in the DGS. None of the entities are going to be stored. Unless the player sees them, those entities are not going to even be spawned on the server. Hey, Toy! How's it going, buddy? We got to get you and Execute. Execute voluntold you. I don't know if you wanted to as well to come onto the 24-hour captain's table. So, how you doing? Hey, Paul, just jumped in. How's the stream going? It's going okay. That's my rage. Everyone loves your rage, Toy. Everyone loves your rage. Don't take this the wrong way. I've heard so many people call you a human meme, and I'm sure it's in nothing but love and engagement. When's exactly 24-hour stream? So I've started a tradition where I did it last year, and I decided to do it again this year, where I'm going to be doing a 24-hour Captain's Table stream for charity the day after CitizenCon. So it'll be on October 9th, and it'll go from 6 o'clock in the morning my time to 7 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time to 7 a.m. Monday. So. You have a point. It's just looking back at the presentation from last year, and this SCL doesn't seem to like we'll have that big of an improvement. I hope we do. I don't think we will. I don't think we're going to see. I think we won't see. We will see improvements. I just don't think it's going to be a significant improvement because a lot of stuff isn't going to function the way they want it to. But I don't think that's. It's not going to improve gameplay, but it'll improve AI. Is my the best way of I can read it as, because what we're getting is 3.17.2, what we have now, but with the new backend. I think the biggest frustration that most people have, including myself, with this is that it will not save your persistent location. So if the server crashes while you're in the middle of quantum, it won't reload you in with your whole ship where you last were when the quantum was happening. It'll load you back at the station. There is no saving of that data. And there will still be culling and stuff like that will occur as normal rates as we see now. You got that coffee ready? Yeah. Yeah, Dark. The problem is that without dynamic server meshing, there is no way they're going to improve anything beyond what they have with PES. PES is their first and probably their last shot at improving player count, AI, and just general stuff with the game. They need to have those things as high and as efficient as possible. They can improve it with bug fixing and with optimizations and other things that can improve that over time. But without dynamic server meshing, you will never see 1,000 player servers. Not unless you can get 1,000 players in one server with 318. Which makes little sense since that location can be passed back by the server with a small margin of error. But hey, that's the problem though, is that you have to account for every single player in a shard to be in one location. And that's what causes problems, because for some reason, the servers cannot handle 100 players in one location. Even if the entire server is in one location, it just shits its fucking brains out when that happens. I don't know the details behind it, but it seems to be the biggest problem. And it's obvious because CIG actually reduces the number of players per server when events happen because they can't handle it. Just got here 313, so I've improved. Got here in 313, so I've seen improvement in leaps and bounds, but I don't have the bitterness and baggage of the original backers. The only thing that upsets me is the Ion. I'll live. Do you think it's a bad sign that AI SCL was canceled? No. They're busy. I'll take what I can get. Yeah. I mean, like, why no rejoin server button? It'll probably automatically do so, but the problem is that they don't have enough time to build that system. They'll automatically sort you into the server that you were supposed to be in before. They just don't have that time. What we're seeing basically is that CIG thought they'd have more time to do what they wanted to do to get 318, to get PES in a position. They don't have that time. They're just going to go with whatever they can get, the bare minimum they need to get server meshing working. And then they're going to get in the server meshing, and server meshing is going to be the bare minimum they can get away with for server meshing. And then they're going to hopefully work on it from there. But they are not able to do everything they want to. So yeah. The real issue is that server crashes and you try to rejoin the server, all will probably still be down, so the entire system won't be able to put you back in the same server right away. Yeah. And they don't have a tool built for that yet. They won't. Not for 318. They may have it for 319. But that's why, like, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I would not expect 4.0 to come out. I expect 318 to come out this year. It's going to happen. It's going to be terrible, but it's going to happen. And then 319 is either going to happen in the end of the year, or more than likely it'll be 318.1 that they rename 319. And then CIG will have a bunch of tools and stuff like that they want to get in place for 319. They won't have enough time to do that and server meshing, and they'll want to improve as much as possible. At least their argument will be, especially in their own internal circles, based off of how CIG talks. They will want to make the experience as good as possible, to refine it as much as possible before they get server meshing in. So they'll say, we'll do 319 and then we'll do 4.0. And so they'll do 319 in the spring, and then they'll come summer and they'll be like, we could use another 2 or 3 months to really get 4.0 where we want it to be. Then they'll delay it again. They'll do a 319.2 or 319.1, whatever it is, for like they did with 317.2, and then fall of next year, they'll do the same thing they did with 318, and it'll still be bare bones basic bullshit, because they always overestimate the amount of time or underestimate the amount of time they need. Something always comes up. I hope I'm fucking wrong. But that's just the pattern that I'm seeing. You'll end up in a different server, but with a state replicated from PES, only certain items, because they don't even have that tool built either, as far as I understand. They don't have the ability to replicate the stuff that is yours, other than the stuff that was stored in your inventory or stored on your ship or in your personal like inventory, which is something they already have. You don't, your server crashes, you go to another server, everything that's in your personal stash is still there. That's why it's basically 3.17.2, but with a new skin. I hope submissions will be kept. That'd be nice, but I don't know if we'll see. Do you think we'll see an uptick in player-facing content quantity in the next couple of years? Yeah. No, theoretically, the last major hurdle is server meshing, because fundamentally, as far as I understand, there is no difference between dynamic server meshing and static server meshing. They're both of the contenters, the technology to stream players in and out and the handoff between servers is the same whether you're static or a dynamic. The only thing that matters is where that border of that server is. And that's more of a server-based backend thing than it is a front player facing thing. So the teams that are not directly dealing with what are they called? Pyros 4.0. The teams that are not directly dealing with the server stuff, a lot of those teams are waiting for that implementation before they can start building in gameplay. Because it doesn't make a lot of sense to build in gameplay if you don't have an idea of what that backend structure will look like in its final tested form. And they often have to build tools and other programs to run to make all that stuff work in the first place. So without all that framework working, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do things that will require those tools in place. It's basically like trying to build a house without the foundation built. You can guess, but you have no idea what the foundation is going to be like. The foundation could be entirely fucked, or it could be completely different because they had to raise it a certain amount, a little bit higher because of other issues that you didn't know about. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to build the roof when the foundation isn't done. And that's the situation. So a lot of teams are waiting for the tech to be finished and implemented before they can start working on more gameplay-oriented stuff. But in theory, a lot of that stuff should be wrapped up with 4.0. So a lot of those teams can start to work on that thing. You'll hear a lot of content creators and players say it's the floodgates will open. And when we say the floodgates will open, we're saying the CIG floodgates will open. So it's not like 4.0 releases and then suddenly you're going to get like 15 game modes or game types that'll pop up in the next patch. It's more like you'll see 2, which would be like, what the fuck did these 2 come from? And then the next you'll see 2 or 3. And the next patch you maybe see 4. And, within 3 years, you're seeing, version 7 of mining alongside all of these other versions that are popping up because those teams have more time and all the tools in place for them to quickly iterate on what they have. And we know this is how CIG works because see Planet Tech, see ships, the ship pipelines, the planet pipelines. You see how Montreal is building a bunch of tools to help improve gameplay and missions and such. That's how they work. They build when they have enough tools, a critical mass of tools, they can start to pull out more things. But it requires that foundation first before they can even get started. So we could, in theory, see more content immediately post 3.18. That would be sick. We could. We probably will. CIG has talked about multi-crew gameplay. They've talked about resource management gameplay. They've talked about more content on planets. They've talked about more AI content. They've been building a shit ton of AI work in Squadron 42 that they'd love to port over to Star Citizen if they get a chance to. But if you read the monthly reports, there's a fuck ton of AI work that's been done. And a lot of it has happened because their framework for AI is finished. They already have much of the base blocks that they're working with AI is done. So now they're working on iterations, making different variations of different AIs, shopkeepers, bartenders, soldiers, thugs, civilians, traders, all these sorts of different archetypes that they're slapping in tags and traits to have them react to different things. They finally have that stuff done. It's just now a matter of there's no point in putting in there if the fucking AI doesn't even work. Pyro's 4.0, yes. So what you're saying is the road to Pyro is longer than we expected? Not surprised. Okay. Listen, I would be down for some working fucking AI. That would be at least something I could point to. See those two? See those two fucking in the window? Yeah, that's AI. Even they're switching up positions. They've been going for the last hour of sessions. I've fallen through the planet twice, and they're still going. More coffee shops, people. Let's go. Hey, man, I'd love to see some more coffee shops. I'd love to see every fucking shop that exists in Star Citizen work, period. Those little carts you see in Area 18, I want to be able to talk to every single one of those people. Beware of AI wielding carts, yes. Is there any news on the alien, sentient, and animal front? I like your Krathok video. Yes! As of 2 months ago, CIG was working on sentient fauna based off of the Vanduul AI profile. So like aggressive, physical, melee-based AI that was functioning, that was being prototyped for Squadron 42. So realistically, Pyro is 1.5 to 2 years away. I'd say it's about a year away. Pyro is realistically about a year away. From today, about a year away. Doing it on chairs, maybe? Yeah, that's hot. So, like, to know what's really the blocking stuff, the stuff that needs to get finished for Star Citizen to become more content-facing players is Quanta needs to be more fleshed out than it currently is. PES needs to fucking work. So the persistence needs to work. And it's the last one. And server meshing needs to work. Once you get 3.18 done with PES and 4.0 done with server meshing, you will see somewhere between those two, or in one of those two hits, probably not 3.18, probably 4.0, you will see an improvement to Quanta. They are currently working on the dynamic mission system. That's been worked on. They had a sprint for it at the beginning of the summer. We haven't heard anything from it yet, but it has been worked on this summer. So, and they've even said in the progress tracker, it says that they're working on the framework and they're waiting for the hookups for Quanta. So they will have the system in place, which kind of resets all of the missions we see now. The mission system we have right now is not the final mission system. Eventually, all of those missions will be spawned dynamically by AI. So depending on where you are and depending on the situations, that will change what the AI, what missions you can get. And so that framework is being worked on right now. I don't think it'll be implemented in 3.18. It probably won't be implemented until at the earliest 4.0, because they also need the Quanta system to function to be able to hook that up. But they also need to take all of the current missions, completely throw them out the window, or completely rewrite them for the new system, because this is the final system they're going to be using for the game. So they need to have this system functioning, and they need to have missions inside of it that kind of spawn inside of it the way they want to. When is 3.18? PES is still in the patch. PES is still in the patch for 3.18, and 3.18's earliest launch for Evocati is next week. Want to see flying food vendor from Fifth Element? I'd love that shit. So the foundation and the frame for the AI house is done, and now an army of plumbers, drywalls, carpenters, floor builders, electricians descend to finish off this AI house effectively. But the road's not done yet. The road that connects that house to the outside world is just grass right now. So it's framed up and ready to go, and they need to build more of it, but they need to wait until that road is finished so they can, get in those people to build those things. Construction's a very awkward metaphor for software development because software development is nothing like construction. You don't build anything. Like the discussions that have been going on with the leaks for GTA 6, where people are like, oh, well, the graphics are the first thing you do in a game. No. Nothing is the first thing you do in a game. Nothing is the first thing you do in a software, a piece of software. There is no rules for software. It doesn't work like that. You do whatever the fuck you think you need to get done. The things that are the easiest, the things that are the most required, doesn't matter. You do the steps that you need to do to make it work in the way that you want it to work. Some people will start with basic blockouts. Programmer art is a concept thing for those sorts of things. So the reality is, like with Star Citizen, is just they could build everything they wanted to, but without understanding how it fits into the larger puzzle of the game, there doesn't seem to be a lot of sense to do that. Building that basic system makes sense. It just plugging it in is the hard part. Well, you need to build something before you can test it. But yeah, testing is one of the first things you do. An army of Jawa salvaging wreck players' new griefing gameplay. Hey, Instigator, thank you so much for that. 9 months of support. You can't go back and alter framing of a house once it's in, but you can largely tweak a framework and add new room into a game pretty much until the very end. You can go back and completely replace entire systems. There are games that have completely overhauled their lighting and their physics engines, and like after they've already released. It's entirely possible that you can replace an entire game engine piece by piece over years. That's what WoW's done. World of Warcraft is a completely different game now than it was when it originally released. They've updated the shaders, they've updated probably everything about that engine is completely changed now than from what it was. And similar to Star Citizen, the game that Star Citizen was when it was first being developed in like 2014, 2015 is nothing like what Star Citizen is today. And Star Citizen in 2024 is going to look completely different than it was today in terms of its engine and everything else, just because things got to get changed and overhauled. I think the meme about players drawing penises on other ships is a little overblown, because I don't think the salvage beams will pierce shields, so you're just going to have a lot of players who try to draw penises and just can't. How much inspiration do you think CIG will take from Night City for Area 18 rework? Probably not a lot. I think CIG would take more inspiration from LA, from Blade Runner. Because that was their main inspiration for Lorville and for Area 18 was Blade Runner and like the city or the colony in Aliens. Expect more 80s and less cyberpunk. That makes sense. Cyberpunk's still going to be there, but I expect more noir and less flashy cyberpunk. Hey, Disco. Night City's an entire game. Area 18 is one of 100 potential locations. Have to consider the focus. Jared, what are you doing up? I just realized, it's like, oh, it's Disco's here. It's like, because I'm so used to you being in LA. It's like, it's 10:40 my time. It's like freaking 3 o'clock in the morning your time. Go to bed. Sleep. Night City is one of the greatest achievements in level design I've ever encountered. I'd argue like Liberty City or some of the places in GTA. There's a lot more interactables in those larger open world games than Night City. I think that's my biggest complaint about Cyberpunk, is that it's very flashy, but there's not a lot of places to go. There's a handful of places to go in certain areas, and it doesn't seem as diverse as places like San Andreas or Liberty City. No sleep till CitizenCon. We just watched the ISC and said it's a very good ISC. It's very fascinating. I enjoyed Night City, but I'm also a fan of the tabletop RPGs, so I've got a little bit more of a nostalgia for it. Because Night City, I've always seen Night City in my brain with TTRPGs. For those who don't know, Cyberpunk was a TTRPG before it became a game. And I think CD Projekt Red did do a really good job of turning Night City into a city, rather than being just an idea. Andor, I wouldn't say has a nice cyberpunk feel. Andor has much more of a Western feel. Well, not really. It feels like a spy film. It feels like a spy film from the 40s. Mike's vision in Cyberpunk is truly amazing. He describes it so vividly. I can't remember if I've met Mike before, but Mike lives in Berkeley, California, which is where I grew up. And there's one place, if you've been to the Bay Area, one of the biggest, oldest, as far as I know, gaming like shops is Games of Berkeley, which I used to go to all the time. And they had tons of things from like Warhammer to D&D to Cyberpunk to a lot of other things. So I want to say I ran into him a couple times selling, or at Games of Berkeley, talking to people and talking about Night City and stuff like that. But he's got an idea, and it's very unique. I remember doing a bunch of lore videos on it and looking at it like, this feels like someone from Northern California from the 90s and 80s talking about the future. It feels very much like that. Games of Berkeley pre and post move. They moved somewhere else before too. You live in the South Bay? Yeah. There's surprisingly for the Bay Area being a big place for games, there's not as many tabletop locations like stores as you think. There's one in Oakland that I remember. I don't remember many in the city. There probably were a couple in the city that I just never went to because it was so far away. But other than that, there's like Games of Berkeley and there's like 2 or 3 in Oakland. But there may be one at like Lafayette areas, but like Richmond, Hayward, and like Vallejo, like just wasn't much of anything out there. Guild House is in San Jose. I don't know about a Guild House. There was one I used to go to all the time when I moved back to California. It was like downtown. It was Dr. Comics and Mr. Games. Yeah, it was Dr. Comics and Mr. Games. Nah, not as much though. Maybe they closed down since I've been there. Area 18 makes me think of the Appleseed anime. Yeah, there's a he gave a keynote and discussed how he got into games. It was pre D&D and it was super interesting. Yeah. Area 18 makes me think of Appleseed, the anime. It's been a while since I've seen Appleseed. Yeah, I think Jared is correct. I would never expect any landing zone to be the size and scale of Night City. I am intrigued to see what they're going to do with Lorville, though. Because it sounds like with Lorville, they have changed how Lorville is entirely. Could be wrong, but the mention of things like 4 neighborhoods, an overhaul of the transport systems, it sounds like they're increasing the size and scale of the landing zones, which is what I hope for. Something that is at least drivable or transportable from location to location, either through public transit or walking or other means would be nice. Because that's one thing that so many people have requested for landing zones. And Star Citizen has fundamentally changed since the introduction of landing zones. It is such a different game because the landing zone concept was back when Star Citizen you still had a cutscene to land on at stuff. So even just the idea of being able to hop into like a hover bike and get on a road and drive a block or two to another location, even if it's a small little fishbowl, would go a long way for adding people's immersion. I was thinking of that one Good Luck song while imagining descending into the Riker Memorial Spaceport. I'm here for it, but spaceships, Yeah, I've heard so many content creators talk about the idea of setting an entire game in one city. I'm here for it, but spaceships, I could see it would be far too much of an effort to turn Area 18 into a full-blown game. Not in Star Citizens and the scope of Star Citizens in development. I could see them doing that, but not as a side project. It'd have to be a full-blown game sort of thing. Yeah, and to be fair to the person who asked that question, if Jared is still here, I think that the concept wasn't Night City as the scale, but in terms of the themes, the look of it, which is what I took it as at least. I still don't think it's going to happen. I think Star Citizen has so much roots in 80s science fiction, CRT, Aliens, Blade Runner, Universal Soldier, Terminator, that kind of aesthetic, that we're going to see something more akin to that when it comes into the rework. Paul, you think we'll see newer, larger ships for Aegis since most of them are around for the Fall of the Measures? Probably not. We'll probably see, we have plenty, there's a shit ton of Aegis ships that are big. A fuck ton. The Javelin, the Idris, the Hammerhead, the Polaris, the Nautilus. 4 right off the bat. But we have yet to see a single capital ship other than the Carrack from Anvil. So, and Anvil, in at least in lore, has been replacing Aegis over time. They're the new hotness where Aegis is on the decline. Aegis is still not as in the shithouse as they used to be, but So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more heavier, larger ships from Anvil rather than Aegis. And Crusader. Crusader also does a lot of military contracts as well. Yeah, I corrected myself. Polaris is RSI. I wouldn't be surprised if CIG goes the route of having a more expandable locations for like Area 18 and such, but it'd probably not be Area 18. It'd probably be another location on the planet. Think of it like bunker missions now, but instead of going down to a bunker, you land on a rooftop and you go down into an office center. Not necessarily like playable locations where you're exploring all of Area 14, but diehard missions, as I've been calling them. Just you go through there, the Yakatomi Tower, and you go down and you take out Hans. all of that again, 80s, 90s action flick sort of things. And that's something they've been talking about for a long time, so. Hans did nothing wrong. Yes, Hans Gruber. Question. At Lorville, what have they been what have they been between Business District and Spaceport? Whether you're seeing blocks of buildings by the hundreds. I don't know, because they're completely redoing Lorville from the ground up. We don't even know where the spaceport's going to be. The spaceport could be in a completely different location when they remake Lorville, which they probably will, because CIG has said multiple times that the idea of putting the spaceport in the middle of the city sounded good, but it was a fucking terrible idea in the long run. And so since then, you've noticed that the spaceports have been getting further away from the actual landing zones, or they're usually separated, so it's a little bit easier to manage those things. So I don't know if we'll see the spaceport still in. It's like Riker. Not Riker is in is Area 18. It's just Lorville, I think. We spoke to Jared Acapella recently during the Bar Citizen. He said it was aimed. That was the aim to ArcCorp missions. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like CIG's talked about in the past. Like I wouldn't be surprised if things like Siege of Orison, a lot of the elements from Siege of Orison will be taken over for other mission types. They even want to do that in 318 with breaking up the different platforms of Siege of Orison, have them in different locations specifically for different mission types. Did I say Jared Acapella? Jake Acapella. Sorry, Jared. I'm tired too. It's been a long week this year. As a former Miami resident, I can attest that having an airport in the middle of the city is a bad idea. TCO, thank you, TCO Spaceport. Let me find the quote so I can kind of go over it with y'all. So I'm gonna be very, very specific. Also, read this week's booty call. For those of you who are lore folks, this week's booty call is a fantastic. It doesn't have a lot of like deep, impactful lore, but it's pretty cool in terms of fleshing out outlaw behavior. The report for July, and also pull up for the August. So there you go. I think it was an August monthly report, but we'll double check. Montreal. All right. The ongoing rework of Lorville's cityscape is progressing well and now down to the gray box stage. The team is currently adding high-frequency details and landing pads and connecting the various neighborhoods together. Also kicked off building interiors, with the first steps being prototype and de-risking the number of technical items. The mention of neighborhoods. I guess I pulled that my ass when I said 4, but it's definitely neighborhoods. There's no why neighborhoods. Why mention it? And I'll show it to you. Right here. Paul, isn't it a school night for you? Yeah, I stay up pretty late for her. I'll probably call it here early. I usually go for about 4 hours, but I've been going about 3. I knew today was going to be a little bit lower because there's not a lot of news to go through, and there's no... It usually takes me about 30 minutes to an hour to go through these monthly reports when they come out, but I've already done all the monthly reports for this week, so... Question, I've been really wanting to attend a Bar Citizen. The last time I was going to go, once I found out the dates, there were only about 2 weeks notice. I just want 2 weeks notice to be televised better. In other words, how can I stay informed about Bar Citizen news? The RSI site is difficult to use. Check out your Bar Citizen in your local area. They usually have a Bar Citizen group meetup, like a Discord or something, and they'll tell you ahead of time. Orson Spaceport should be above the city islands itself. Possibly. I guess you're saying, like, above all of them and then you go down. Yeah, I can see that. But there is an Alaska Bar Citizen. There was, at least, for a bit. Orville has always been my favorite city. The Blade Runner vibes are just... I mean, yeah, the Central is Tower. It's the Tyrell Corporation. That's what it is. It's heavily influenced by the Tyrell Corporation's building in Blade Runner. I understand why the TTD aren't in the spaceports or adjacent to them. I know why, and this is at least my theory, which is TDDs are designed, or at least were designed originally, to be in the landing zones where they are, because before, for those who don't know, Star Citizen used to not have landing on planets. It used to be a cutscene. So there was a cutscene where you would fly from space to the ground, you'd see a little cutscene, you'd land, and then you'd get out of your ship and you would go into the landing zone, similar to like Freelancer. So you would effectively be landing in a hangar somewhere, and you wouldn't actually need to separate that from the actual landing zone. You could just walk to the landing zone and it would be fine. So all of the content had to be in the landing zone in order for you to access it. Since that's changed, you actually physically land, they've had to separate the locations of the landing zones and the actual, like spaceports. Now, the argument I can see of why keeping that the way it is because they want you to be on planets, and they want you to explore the landing zones, because the landing zones are going to be far more than just a mission repository. They do not want you to come down to a planet and just go to the TTD and leave. They want you to explore those zones, to run into other players, to run into AI. Because at its core, Star Citizen and CIG's design kind of ethos is engage with other people, please. The downtime between missions is a prime place to run into other people, talk with them, hang out with them, doing things And so landing zones have to be filled with content that you can do that aren't necessarily stressful or immediate. Eating food, shopping, other things like that. So TTDs are part of that. For those, trade and development districts. I can't remember what they're called. Trade and development something. Those areas are designed to be where in the future you're going to get missions. Bounty missions, trade missions, what have you. Your Mobiglass probably won't have all of those missions locked onto them 24/7 the way you do now. There'll probably be some filter out of that. Trade and development districts. Okay. Divisions. Trade and development division. Yeah, thank you. The jobs walls. Yeah, that's what ours. Do you know if Jobswell building could be re-implemented one day for a place finding missions originally seen in the social module? Yes, that's what I'm just saying, Max. That's literally what it is. Those job wells are the TDD's office. I want to walk around the seedy ground level streets of Area 18. I don't think you'll ever do so. I'd love to see that, but I don't think we will. Think they'll surprise us with Vulcan or Liberator? No. I could see the bottom levels of Area 18 as a quest location. Maybe. Think of like the islands of Siege of Orison. Oh wait, yeah, I forgot. Everything's turned off here. I hate to tell you this, Jacob. I really do. We've known since a while that we're not going to get Squadron 42 at CitizenCon. In Chris Roberts' letter, he said specifically, there will be no new news of Squadron 42 at CitizenCon. Not yet. Now, there is a long tradition of CIG releasing Squadron 42 information at the end of the year. There was only one year they didn't do that, which was last year. Normally, they release something about Squadron in like the November, December range. Be it like a commentary track, a trailer, like a sizzle reel, something. And they've been doing it for years up until last year. But almost guaranteed. Well, and also 2020 they didn't do it at the end of the year, but they did do the what is it called? The briefing, something like that. The one that everyone's does. So the one that everyone complained about, I should say. One everyone complained about. The one on the station. The briefing room. Yes, the briefing room. Thank you. Question, do you think we can hire NPCs for player crew at dropwell sites? Probably. That would be a logical place to at least find the locations of like where NPCs are offering their services, other than, say, bars. I like some ground level Area 18 missions involving corporate terrorist groups or city gang wars. We'll see. Are we still probably going to get the usual 3 ships released at IAE this year, or is there a chance they'll add more? As of the last monthly report, there is... we definitely know we're getting the Corsair, and we're definitely getting the Vulture. And there's a ground vehicle that's finished and a ship that's finished on top of those 2. So we're at least getting 4, which will probably come out in 318. And since 318 is coming out in at IAE, at least their current estimate, then I wouldn't expect much to come out in CitizenCon. Maybe a concept ship, either at CitizenCon or at IAE, but likely nothing else beyond that. There's also, I think, 2 or 3 other ships which are making their way through. So we may see something at CitizenCon that's a concept ship that's going to release at, spring of next year. You think they'll release a new 600i designs? No. So, for those of you who are wondering, you can learn a lot about what's going on in Star Citizen by looking at the progress tracker and looking at the monthly reports. Those two combined will give you a lot of information. You add that to with ISC and SCL, you get a lot more information. You get a much bigger picture. And if they don't mention it in the progress tracker, if they don't mention it in the monthly report, and if you don't see anything in ISC or SCL about it, it's likely not happening. So for instance, the 600i rework, which has been in people's minds for a long time. It's not on the progress tracker last I checked. I haven't heard anything about it in the monthly reports. We haven't seen or heard anything about it on ISC. And I think it's been asked about in the SCL in the past, and they've said it's not being worked on yet. So all 4 of those, I wouldn't expect it. CIG is not quiet. When CIG is working on something, they will fucking tell you. There's no secret ninja, ninjutsu kind of things, except for when you get towards CitizenCon, and in CitizenCon they will release new information, and some ships will get through, but they never, ever hide ships that are already been announced as unannounced ships. As far as I understand, when they say something like an unannounced ship made it to gray box phase, that does not mean it's secretly the 600i rework. Because they will never do that. They'll say the 600i rework has reached the gray box stage. An unannounced ship means it's an unannounced ship. Never been talked about before. That's what it means. There's no current or upcoming on progress tracker for Tally either, because they're probably waiting for modular thingamaboobs. Modularization, or like whatever it's called. The ability to pop in and out the modules. And of course, the new Redeemer, or the Redeemer Retaliator, is designed for Squadron. So it's got to be in Squadron first before it even comes to Star Citizen. Kung Fu is strong. Yes, Jaden, your Kung Fu is strong. Again, I have to watch my mouth because of how many times CIG employees are in my chat. Between you and Jared and Jake and so many other... The pilot sometimes shows up here and talks. So many different people. It's just like, yeah, I gotta shut my fucking mouth sometimes. Sometimes someone's actually fucking listening to me and it scares the shit out of me. Oh, maybe Paul has something right. No, Paul, please don't. I don't know anything. I'm just using what I have, my tools at hand. That's the thing that scares me more than anything, is that sometimes I'll do something or say something, and then the narrative team will write a story about it like a month later, and I'm like, did they listen to me? Did they like watch that video and go, that's a cool thing, let's dive more into it? If that's the case, I'm like, that is not, you do not do that for me. No, I don't need that, please. Off topic, but how off topic, Rings of Power tomorrow, and yeah, Hocus Pocus 2 soon. A lot of stuff coming in. CIG to punish Paul, put a Redeemer in his... Listen, CIG has been threatening to put a Redeemer, an unmeltable Redeemer in my account for years, and they still haven't done it. So... Hey, Fair Assault. Paul's right is not on the bingo card. Thank you, Jaden. Thank you for confirming that. Narrative story, galactic story, found dead. Not even Paul trusts Paul with that much power. No. I watch a lot of watch a lot of why am I blanking on it? It's because I'm tired. Adeptus Ridiculous. For those who watch like Warhammer 40k lore. And Adeptus Ridiculous is a podcast, and they have a saying. The whole concept is one of the hosts is really knowledgeable in 40k lore, and the other one has no idea. So the idea is that the one who knows tells them all the other one about all the ridiculous stuff that happens in the 40k universe, and so it's kind of like one person teaching another, which is a really nice, neat little like gimmick. But there's a saying, because the person who teaches the lore always overgeneralizes or leaves something out or screws something up, and someone always comments at it. So he's had to say, Bricky is his name. He always has a saying which says entertainment over accuracy, and I kind of like that, because it's kind of what I've been trying to say for a long time with a lot of things like Squadron, with like Captain's Table, and other shows that I do, which is I don't know anything. I'm not a member of CIG's staff. I have never worked for CIG. Probably never will work for CIG. I just follow the project, and I can be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. In the reality of the things, the reality is that anyone who says they know something and doesn't work for CIG is fucking lying to you. They don't know. They're doing their best guess with the information they have, but they don't know. And one of my favorite little taglines for Captain's Table was when Board Gamer was on, and he said something to the effect of like, "We don't know shit." None of us know shit. It was like me and Board Gamer and like Super Mac Bros were on together, and it was like, yeah, it sounds about right. We don't really know shit. we're doing the best with what we got. So keep that in mind with a lot of that stuff. I'll ask Eric about the Redeemer thing. That's within my power to do. Don't tell Eric. I don't need Lime Cat to be trolling me, because he'll actually do it. Because Eric doesn't sleep. Like, I legitimately get concerned about Proxus for not sleeping. Last I talked to him, he actually finally had enough team members that he could rely on, so he didn't have to do all the work. But that man didn't sleep for like the last 3 years. And it scares the shit out of me. I mean, to be fair, Aimless, I don't think many people at CIG have a full idea of what's going on at CIG. Everyone has their own pieces and parts to play, but I know I've talked with CIG employees who say they don't know anything about the lore except for what they watch with my videos, because they don't have any direct interaction with the lore team because they don't really need to, other than what they have already. What if the Hush Hush ship is a tow ship? Maybe. I mean, they're working on the SRV is being worked on right now. So generally speaking, if you're looking for a good idea of what's being worked on, see what content is being worked on now for the future. And that's generally what CIG is likely to be working on in terms of a ship. The good old standby is combat. They'll always have, combat ships because it's in the game and it works. But especially if they don't have a lot of diversity, like salvage, for instance. There's 2 ships for salvage. There's likely going to be more salvage ships. Just because CIG is just introducing salvage now, the idea of having a medium salvage ship or a large salvage ship, something between the Vulture and the Reclaimer, big possibility, simply because they don't have a lot of ships. A version of the Rock that's just a salvage beam instead, or those sorts of things are very, very likely because they're already working on it. Easy, simple additions. Things like anything that has to deal with the hey, Al. And then there's 10 years of lore to catch up on now if you're new. Yeah. Resource management is another big one. So refueling, repair, those sorts of things are going to become more important as they go into Pyro and such. So, and as the game expands. Because I say this every time, people don't realize Pyro is 3 times the size of Stanton. It is 3 fucking times the size of Stanton. And Pyro is like a medium, like on the low end of average in terms of its size. As Al will say, like Laughs and Tamsa. Tamsa's like 200 AU. Freaking Keel is 195 AU. Likely some of those will change simply because, those assets were added well long ago, but they probably aren't going to change that much. You heard it first, CIG working on a medium to large salvage ship. Yeah, I can almost guarantee you that CIG will release a medium to large salvage ship at some point. I can also guarantee you that Star Citizen will launch at some point between now and the heat death of the universe. I was playing the other night, the whole bunch of wrecks appeared in my server. They're floating wreckages with pip markers and values. I think they might be connected to salvage. It wasn't the standard investigation wrecks. They just had like mining marks. I have never seen that myself, so I couldn't comment on it. But they've had wrecks just randomly floating for a while. It's just they don't usually populate a bunch. Argol multi-operator salvage extraction system, the Moss, the Moses. Maybe. I guarantee CIG is working on a medium to large salvage ship. We've been waiting so long for this new salvage ship. When will CIG break the silence? Generally speaking, CIG is going to try to fill the major role with every type of ship, a introduction ship, all the way up to a large ship, because that's the way the pattern they've worked it forever. Like mining, we have the Prospector, then we have the Mole, and then we have the Orion. We may have something between the Mole and the Orion, which makes sense. With refueling, we have the Vulcan. The Vulcan, which is the small, like the introduction ship, and you have the Starfarer, which is kind of a larger ship. A medium or a much bigger ship is also possible in that kind of range as well, just because they'll fit different roles. The one thing CIG will never lack in Star Citizen is fucking ships. Ships are things they know how to do, they can make them, they can always sell more of them, so they will always make more ships. And there's plenty of roles for them to fill. It seems like there's a shit ton of ships, because there are, but there are so many ships which just haven't been filled out yet. It takes 2 to 3 years for capital ships because a lot of the teams that are working on capital ships are stuck on Squadron 42. Because they have 2 or 3 teams that work on capital ships. One's in the US, one's in the EU. And I think one's in Frankfurt and maybe one is in Manchester now. But it's like 2 to 3 groups who are working on it. I know there's at least a US and an EU team. And it takes a while to build those ships. But there's also teams that are building the Vandul ships, that are building the Bengal, that are building the Idris, that are building the Javelin. And those teams are working on Squadron because they need to build the interiors for those first. And those won't come to the PU, so it seems like it's taking so long for them to do a capital ship. In reality, it's just those assets aren't assigned to Star Citizen yet. You're saying they're having a hard time raising capital? Ships? But you missed everything, Ghost. Everything. The US is working on the capital ship? There's no cap ship team in the US? I thought there was a large ship team in the US. Isn't that the Banu? Banu Merchantman? Isn't that being worked on in the US? Or am I thinking wrong? There's no cap ship team. I mean larger ship team. Banu's UK. Okay. What am I thinking is the US? They're working on the Corsair right now. That's what the US is doing. Point still stands. A lot of the ship teams are working on Squadron 42. So that's why it takes longer. A, just a bigger ship. But B, there's a lot of people who are not working on Star Citizen. Tea in it. Terrible building materials. I don't know if Montreal has a ship team. They may, eventually, but Montreal seems to be more focused on the sandbox side of things. So, tools, systems, landing zones, those sorts of things. That doesn't mean Montreal won't ever have a ship team. They may, but they also could not. Whole ship manufactured just for Montreal team. Those guys already work so fucking fast. I don't know if you do with a ship. Yeah, a better way of putting it is there is one ship team per location. Lots of places. I don't know if there's a Frankfurt team, but I know there's a UK team and there's a US team. There may be an EU team for ships as well, but they can only have so many brain space to work on one ship. And so, generally speaking, each studio tends to work on one large to capital ship per year because it takes a long time for them to do it. So if one team's working on a larger ship, it doesn't make a lot of sense for the other teams to work on another large ship because then you don't have anything coming out. But it's not like a monoblock. Just because there's one team that's working on this doesn't mean they can't work on other ships that's going on. I know like Austin, for instance, was working on like the Cutlass versions. So just because, there's an LA team doesn't mean there couldn't be an Austin team, or a UK team doesn't mean there couldn't be a Frankfurt team. There's vehicle content EU and vehicle content US. Yes, but that's... There's also vehicle features US and vehicle features EU, which is different. Versal is right. But it's also vehicle content EU doesn't necessarily mean it's all UK. And vehicle content US doesn't necessarily mean it's like all LA. Because I know for a fact, at least as of a couple years ago, that Austin was working on ships. Don't tell that to the UK, Disco. Don't tell that to the UK. EU is UK. That is something that the UK government disagrees with. I get it. I get it though. German studio's up. But like people ask this in the past, like which teams do what? And the answer is they all do fucking everything. It's just some places specialize in others. Like the UK team is mostly where Squadron 42 is, but it doesn't mean that other people don't work on Squadron. Frankfurt is mostly engine, but doesn't mean they just do engine. Austin is mostly like online stuff and the PU online stuff. Doesn't mean they just do that. And LA is like an admin and other aspects. It doesn't mean they just do that though. It's like Montreal is mostly like tech and like PU sandbox stuff, but it doesn't mean there's not a sandbox team in the EU and sandbox in the US. So. Can we get an org chart up? I need to know to complain to. You'll never find out. There's 1,000 fucking people in that studio, in that company. There's no fucking way you'll know who to complain to. Yeah. How many titles have you had since you've been working at CIG? How many fucking titles have you had? Fucking who else is here? Jaden, how many titles have you had since you've worked for CIG? Yeah. Paul Jones and John Crew have been with CIG almost since the beginning, and I'm sure their titles have changed like 7 or 8 times since then. The best way to understand CIG's organizational chart is CIG has not enough people to do the jobs they want to, are hiring more people to get the jobs they want to, and when they hire the people they want more jobs to get they need, they open up more jobs because they realize they need more people to do more things that they actually need to get done. Which is why the team has gone from 8 people in a basement, as we talked at the very beginning of the stream, to over 1,000 people, or almost 1,000 people, with over 1,000 people planned in the future. Jared's here to make sure I don't act a fool. Stop spreading all these misinformation. Like that, Jared is a very, very strong man, and he gives incredible body carries. He will pick you up and throw you over his shoulder and carry you down the streets of San Diego. That's totally not something that has actually happened in my experience. Hiring the right people is probably the hardest challenge CIG has. Finding the right people is probably the hardest challenge. Not necessarily hiring, but finding them. Because there's a lot of issues that come into fact. One, CIG is hesitant to give remote working a chance. There are some people I know who work remotely for CIG for certain roles, but CIG is very hesitant to hire remotely. And in a post-COVID world, or current COVID world, that's a difficult shot to do, because there's a lot of talent who are very much not okay with working in an office and would rather work remotely, either because of disabilities or other issues. And CIG management has very much been reticent to do that. Though that doesn't mean that they don't do that. I've talked with plenty of CIG members in Austin who say they do have flex time and they do have a certain number of hours they can work remotely. But especially with these new offices, I would very much doubt that CIG would be willing to to hire new people on remotely unless they were very, very needed. In fact, CIG has gone out of their way to not hire people remotely up until COVID. So there is some give and take, and that's going to be a difficult proposition for CIG. CIG seems to think they can do that anyways. Could be happen, could not. We'll see. They may have to change that in the future as well. The year is 2042. CIG and Star Citizen development now employs 60% of the world's population. The new tally team is working developing real quantum drive. Avenger has been doing some awesome stuff lately. Any plans to bring you on for a chat again soon? Has he been on the captain's table? I don't think he's ever been on the captain's table. I've been hanging out with him in other places, but never been on the captain's table. At some point, I'll get him on. I'll probably have him hang out with Ollie, because I know I talked with Ollie recently to have him come on in October. Yeah. Paul, could you see AI art books coming to CIG with the amount of work needed for assets? No. Not a single artist I know is okay with AI generated art working in any way, shape, or form. There's no way I could see CIG turning to AI generated art for anything. Maybe, I don't say anything. There may be some AI generated work they'll do for some of the fringe stuff, but most of the work is still going to have to be done by an artist. I just don't see them trusting it, B, the technology up to snuff, and C, artists would just no. Some companies are doing 60% in office, 40% at home. Cam just got hired a new job, my wife, and it's almost entirely remote for her position, but they do want to do 70-30. Or 70% in the office, but her job is so remote because it's mostly support for the rest of the company that she's still currently going through training, but she's probably going to stay remote for most of it. But like a lot more difficult. Like CIG is very much of the belief that working together is a better proposition than working remotely. Which I'm sure is true. And most of the people I've talked to in the industry, at least around Star Citizen, I tend to agree that it's better to work together with somebody for a lot of different things. Oh, so you gotta see. Hey, Alkaza. How's life after high school? I can see that, especially for creative teams. UTSA, nice. Good job. So for people who ask, do my students watch me? Yes and no. They do, but only after I only give it to them after they've left high school because of the stupid Texas laws. I'm a history teacher. I'm jealous you have the balls to do this. You know what I'm talking about then, Alec. How dangerous it can be. It helps that I don't use my real name. I'm actually about to download this game. Is it a great multiplayer game? So this is Office Hours. This is a stream where we talk about news, lore, just AMA hangout for a couple of hours to talk about the game. We do this on Thursdays. I do more gameplay on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. There are plenty of other good people out there. If you are coming into Star Citizen, the best way I can say is that Star Citizen is a game that's an alpha. It feels like it's an alpha. You will fall through the planet. You will have game-breaking bugs. Your ship will explode for no reason. You will get a crime stat for blinking the wrong way. And you will die because you walked 2 feet and then just exploded for no reason. Just disappeared into the ether. You will ragdoll for no reasons. There will be a myriad of frustrating bugs which just do not work. But that, like, one time everything works perfectly. You will never have any experience other than ever have it like it before. It's one of those games where it's fun, especially if you have friends. It's very fun. But you kind of have to roll with the punches. And there will be times where it's not as playable as you'd like. Yeah, if you want to do it, and if you haven't already used the referral code, !Star Citizen, I think in chat will give you my referral code. Do glitches always happen? Yes. You can, every single game session, you're going to experience a glitch. It's very much an alpha product. If you are a person who's like, I need to have smooth... Look at it this way. Can you play Cyberpunk 2077 right now? And with the bugs and glitches that still happen there, and still enjoy the game? If the answer is no, Star Citizen is far too buggy for that. Hey, Ghost, thank you for the $10. What kind of ship?
Hey, a tip. GH05T, super chatted $10. What kind of ship engine tech did we start with and where did we end up in current lore?
The lore? So the lore for Star Citizen engine tech is quantum drive. Quantum drive is the basis of everything. It's basically an Alcubierre warp drive. It's the original one was 0.02C. I want to say zero is like 2% the speed of light. Still fast, but not as fast. We're now at 0.2C or 20% the speed of light. But it's pretty much the same. In fact, even jump drives are just modified quantum drives. The original jump drives were basically just quantum drives that someone hit with a hammer a bunch of times. No other games doing what Star Citizen does. And even with frustrations, they keep coming back. Yeah. It's one of those games that just won't let you go, will go over you. Like, if you want to play Star Citizen and like for a patch, enjoy it, come back, you find play other games that you wish had Star Citizen's, the things that Star Citizen has. It's one of those things. I'm sure Disco Orlando is always here, watching, waiting for the opportunity to strike. Pretty sure that Paul has a video on the RSI Zeus if you want lots of information going fast in Star Citizen. Do I? I have a lot of information about Zeus. I think I've talked about the Zeus like four different videos. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Screw you, Star Citizen. I'll see you tomorrow. I think bugs could also be a hardware issue. Definitely, bugs can definitely be our hardware issues. It's just a game in alpha. It's not optimized for all our hardware stuff. I do believe, and I could be wrong on this factor, Jaden, you can correct me because I know you work more towards that department. But there is like a 2-week period where if you can still return the game if you played it. There's also free flight weeks that they do all the time. I'm sure there's going to be a free flight week for CitizenCon or around CitizenCon, and I can almost guarantee you there'll be one around IAE. So there's probably going to be a free flight week in the next month, sometime in October or definitely sometime in November if you can wait on it. And all you need is just an account, and you can play it for free. So basically, sometimes as simple as being able to tell your to get out of your pilot seat to walk through the ship can make or break another game. Yeah. Now I see you know if now I see I want to know if we have lore on how engines work. Yeah. Yeah. Let me pull up the full thing. Everything's based off of quantum drives. So, quantum drive is an Alcubierre warp drive. It creates a bubble around the ship that contracts space directly in front while expanding directly behind. This process involves manipulation of energy density around the ship. Since it's contracting and expanding space around you, your frame of reference stays the same, meaning that anything outside the bubble feels no effect of acceleration. Or inside the bubble, quantum fuel, specifically quantanium, is used to create the negative energy density around the ship. If you think about an Alcubierre, I can't say it right, the warp drive that has been theorized, you need some sort of negative mass, negative mass energy. And effectively what QT fuel is that negative mass energy. And in the lore itself, it's based off of specific transisotopes which capture a specific quantum particle and hold on to it for a certain amount of time. Scientists use that to harness that quantum particle and then use that quantum particle for its negative mass properties to run the quantum drives. Good night, Jabberwocky. So create a mass effect. Pre-flights are the worst time to play due to server issues, so that makes it a perfect time to test whether you like the game or whether or not for you. Yeah, exactly. Fusion power plants is how they get a lot of the power, but the actual drives work differently in the game. Interesting that the ratio of ship concepts to straight to flyable per year versus the ship releases per year were already in development. I mean, generally speaking, all of the ships that are long-term concept that are below a large ship are out. I can't think of a small ship that's been in concept for years that hasn't been released. There's a couple of ground vehicles, the X1, the Ranger, but a lot of those have been waiting for other things and haven't really been on the forefront. But outside of, I can't even think of one. The Corsair, but the Corsair is going to be released this year. Good night, Jaden. Have a good night. No, well, I don't think we'll ever see ion-based engines. The problem with ion-based engines is that the actual ion-based engines that exist in reality today are so low specific impulse that it's very difficult to have them go fast. They're very efficient, but it takes forever for them to go up to. Like TIE fighters in like Star Wars are supposed to be ion engines, but in reality, those ion engines are far faster than they actually would be. Even super efficient. I don't think we'll ever see anything beyond what we see in Star Citizen for what nebulous thrusters versus quantum drives, simply because those make sense. Like the thrusters already produce insane amounts of thrust to beat gravity. They're like 2 or 3 Gs, so it's a little different. You think quantum drives will be able to get upgraded like quantum drives or jump drives? Yeah, I think so. Do we know how the Vanduul acquired their spacefaring tech? Nope. We don't know a lot about the Vanduul. We have Vasimir type thrusters. Yes, but Vasimir is a hybrid ion design. It's not just ions. We also have ion drives, but they're used on like satellites and probes. They're very slow and low power, good for small satellites that will travel vast distances where it doesn't matter to take them years to get up to decent speed. Yeah. All right, y'all. It's almost midnight. I gotta go to bed. I'm so crazy. I'm getting plenty of sleep, but just I've been exercising. So my reserve energies have been low since the last couple of weeks. All right, y'all. Thank you for hanging out. I'll be back tomorrow for our bar stream where I kind of open up the bar in game, do a little bit of light role play. You can come by, grab a drink, talk a little bit, in character sort of things. Probably be at Hurston again, just because. And then Saturday, we've got Captain's Table. It's going to be a little early because it's going to be Execute and Space Tomato and myself, and we're going to talk about CitizenCon. We're going to go over the panels at CitizenCon, what to expect, what we think about the panels, all sorts of things. So it'll be a nice kind of wrap up. And then like next week, we're not going to have a Captain's Table because the day after CitizenCon, we're going to have a 24-hour Captain's Table. So. And then Sunday, we'll be doing our lore League of Relic Enthusiasts expeditions. We're going to go do archaeology, tactical archaeology, high caliber archaeology in game. So the organization's going to get together and we're going to go to the different ruined outposts and try to find artifacts in game. How early is early? 2:30 p.m. my time, so 3:30 p.m. Pacific. No, Eastern. 3:30 p.m. Pacific. Eastern. I keep saying that. About 2 hours earlier than we usually go. Two and a half hours early. Ballistic archaeology. Can you join? Yes, if you want to join the Relic Hunt, make sure that you sign up on the Discord. The Discord's available, !Discord in chat. There's going to be a little sign up thing you can go there. Hiring Sites exhibition. Make sure you're definitely going to come because that's where we're going to be doing all of the conversations and stuff like that. The Quantum engine looks like my favorite engine. The ship forms a black hole in front of it, and like the proverbial carrot in the stick, the ship falls while keeping out in front of it. They're gonna change that a little bit. They're definitely doing a new animation style for the QT animation. So, do you think we'll encounter AI-controlled torpedoes gone rogue? Yes. CIG can make it happen. They'll do it. What date and time for Lore Citizen with Old Man Hurston? That's done offline, but Execute and Al and I are going to be doing a Lore Citizen tomorrow, which means that Tuesday will be, or next Wednesday will be when that Lore Citizen comes out. And the next Friday, we're doing another Lore Citizen with Jail and Al and myself, talking about aliens, Tavaran, Banu, and Xi'an, and kind of like who they are, kind of brief overviews of how they function. That'll be released on the Wednesday before CitizenCon. So. You don't have to be in the org to join us. You just have to go sign up on Discord. Is this a black tie event? No. Unless a black tie is a type of gun. And yes. All right, y'all. Thank you also so much for joining us. If you are watching this on Twitch, make sure you hit that follow button. It means a lot to me that you come follow us. That lets you know when I go live, because I am not just going to be streaming Star Citizen. I also stream other content. We're going to get back into doing some more tabletop RPGs. Dark Tide's coming out in November. I'll definitely be streaming Dark Tide. There's the new Gundam game that I might try out a little bit. So if you want to see some more space and science fiction games, definitely check that out. I'll be back, like I said, back live tomorrow. And if you're watching this on Twitch or on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed this. Make sure you're following me at youtube.com/TheAstroHistorian for my lore content. Do that whole suite. And yeah, like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.